The chapter opens in a snowy wilderness. We see a group of carriages racing through a frost-covered forest. The carriages are moving at full speed, carrying what appears to be military supplies, but they are not alone. Ice-covered wolves are chasing them through the blizzard. These monsters are massive, their bodies wrapped in frost, their paws shaking the ground with every stride. The coachman guiding the carriages keeps looking back. No matter how fast they move, the monsters keep up. He begins to panic. He wonders how they are going to protect the rations. Then one of the wolves appears directly beside him and lunges. Before it can land the hit, a blade drives clean through it. The coachman spins around in shock. Standing there is a young woman, a female swordsman moving with sharp, controlled precision. The coachman immediately recognizes her and calls out to her as the vice squad leader. This is Maria Caravel. She is a second-year student of Phalian's martial arts department. As she cuts through the monster, Maria tells the coachman to keep running. She assures him that they will handle everything from the rear. The moment she says this, the remaining monsters close in on her all at once. Before they can reach her, something enormous crashes down from above and sends a shockwave of snow through the air. Maria immediately drops into a fighting stance. The shape rises from the snow, a massive white bear. It screams and swings its enormous paw directly at her. But someone steps in front of her. A man with a sword and shield plants himself between Maria and the blow. The bear's paw slams into the shield. The man doesn't flinch. He simply says, "Pretty heavy, huh?" This is Brahm Hugo, a fourth-year student of Phalian's martial arts department. The bear slowly pushes its claws forward, trying to overpower him. The moment Brahm feels the pressure building, he channels his energy directly into the shield and releases it, blasting the bear backwards and off balance. That is the opening Maria needed. She drops low, kicks off the ground, and launches herself into the air. Her energy floods into her blade. She brings it down in a single sweeping slash and tears straight through the monster. Its body crashes into the snow below. When Maria lands, she exhales sharply. From the top of one of the carriages, another student watches the two of them from a distance. She takes note that the ground threat has been dealt with. She tells herself that the flying monsters will be cleaned up soon enough. After all, she left that task to a dependable person. And in the sky above, a red-haired student is already at work. Surrounded by crackling energy, she stretches out her hands and crushes the flying creatures around her one by one using telekinesis. She moves through them with complete calm. This is Azel, a third-year student of Phalian's magic department. Back on the ground, the last remaining threat is the one targeting the supply line directly. As the female squad leader scans the area, the ground beneath her suddenly erupts. A monster bursts upward from below the snow. Enormous, multi-legged, covered in frost. It is a frost centipede. It opens its jaws wide and charges straight at her. The girl pulls back her hood. Her eyes sharpen. She raises one hand and points at the monster and says a single word. "Stop." Immediately, black chains erupt from above and wrap around the frost centipede, locking its legs, crushing its movement, binding it completely in place. The girl rises into the air, her black whip coiling around the monster tighter and tighter. Then with one sharp motion she pulls and tears it apart. She lands quietly. The creature's remains fall around her in pieces. This is Adeshan, a fourth-year student of Phalian's martial arts department. The rest of the squad rushes over to regroup. The tension in the air starts to settle. Maria tells Adeshan she handled it well. Brahm checks if anyone is hurt. He adds that something at this level barely counts as a warm-up. The group exchanges tired smiles. But Adeshan knows the truth. She looks at each of them. Everyone has reached their limit. They have been fighting without rest since this winter began, and this is not a natural winter. Since it started, the monsters have not stopped coming. Their professors have been deployed to the outer defensive lines. There is no backup. There is no rotation. Rest is a luxury they simply cannot afford right now. Still, Adeshan puts on a calm expression and suggests they take a moment to reorganize. She reminds them that the next ambush could come at any time. They need even a short window to recover. And then, everything changes. A pulse of energy rolls across the area like a shockwave. Every member of the squad freezes. Azel's expression shifts immediately. She wonders out loud if there is a general-ranked monster somewhere nearby. Maria turns to Adeshan and asks for orders. But Adeshan doesn't respond right away. Something has caught her eye. Through the snow, a figure is walking toward them. Steady pace, no urgency, completely unhurried, as if they had simply been out for a stroll through the blizzard. The figure has black hair, a sword at their side. The caption reads, "First-year student of Phalian Martial Arts Department." It is Ronan. Our boy is back, and he is now a repeating student of the academy. He looks at the squad, battle-worn, exhausted, standing over the remains of a general-ranked monster encounter, and with a calm smile on his face, he asks them one question. Has everyone been well? The squad was completely frozen when they saw Ronan standing there in the snow. Nobody could believe what they were seeing. Ronan looked at each of them with a calm smile and said that everyone seems to have changed quite a bit since they last saw each other. He looked over at Brahm and asked him if he has started growing a beard. Brahm didn't know what to say. Ronan then turned to Asel and noticed that his hair had grown much longer. He jokingly asked him if he has decided to become a woman. Then he looked at Maria and told her that her short hair suits her well. He said that short hair is more practical in combat anyway. Then he turned to Adeshan and asked her with a smile if something is bothering her. Adeshan was speechless. Ronan told her that she looks exhausted, and he then looked at the entire group and asked them why they were all staring at him like that. He said it feels like they are seeing each other for the first time in several years. The moment he said that, the entire squad ran toward him at once. Ronan was completely caught off guard. Asel and the girls tackled him into the snow and held onto him tightly. Ronan stood back and watched. Ronan asked them what was going on. He told them to calm down. As far as he was concerned, only a few months had passed since winter began. He could not understand why everyone was making such a fuss. Then he noticed that Asel and the girls were crying. Ronan's expression changed. With a confused and nervous look on his face, he asked them if he was missing something. Later, the group gathered around a campfire. The snow was still falling around them. It was there that they finally told Ronan the truth. He had not been asleep for a few months. He had been asleep for 2 years. Ronan sat quietly and took that in. The time he spent inside the mental realm had felt like only a few days at most. He could not believe that the curse had managed to screw him over even at the very end. Adeshan explained to him that Professor Surkite had done everything in her power to wake him up from the moment he fell unconscious. She tried everything she could, but nothing worked. The professor had concluded that Ronan would not be able to regain consciousness unless the curse broke on its own, so all they could do was keep their promises to him and wait. A lot of people protected him while he was asleep, and 2 years eventually passed. Ronan looked down at himself and quietly said that he had inconvenienced a lot of people. Brahm stepped in with a grin and informed Ronan that he personally handled all of his hygiene and physical care during those 2 years. He asked him if he was satisfied with the condition of his body. Ronan went pale. He suddenly understood why his skin felt so clean and well-maintained, even after sleeping for 2 full years. He nervously asked Brahm why he looked the way he did, if Brahm was the one taking care of him. Brahm asked him what he meant by that. Ronan decided to drop it. He told Brahm he was simply thanking him. Asel then told Ronan not to worry about his elder sister, Iril. He informed him that Shalafin was keeping her under extremely tight security. He said that even the Emperor's own chambers would not be as safe as wherever Shalafin had placed her. Ronan smiled nervously. He knew exactly what Shalafin was capable of, and he believed it completely. He looked around the fire at everyone and felt relieved that they were all doing well. Then he turned to Maria and asked her to explain what happened during the ambush earlier. He pointed out that for a merchant supply convoy to be attacked on the imperial trade route which has the highest level of security in the empire, was not a small incident. On top of that, the monsters attacking them were the kind that should only ever appear in the northern regions. Even accounting for winter, that did not make any sense. Maria looked at Adeshan with a small expression of disbelief. She had not expected the first thing Ronan would worry about after waking up from a 2-year sleep to be the state of the world. She told Adeshan that Ronan really had not changed at all. Adeshan agreed with a quiet smile. Then she turned to Ronan with a slightly strange expression and asked him if he was not at all curious about them. Ronan did not understand why she was making that face. Assel stepped in and told Ronan he would explain everything. He said it all started a year ago. He told Ronan that an endless winter was brought down upon the imperial city by the Witch of Winter. Ronan went still. He asked Assel if he had heard that correctly. He knew that name. The Witch of Winter was the one who had engulfed the entire capital in a terrifying freezing cold. She had let countless people freeze to death. She was known as the most notorious criminal in the entire history of the empire. Ronan had been certain she was supposed to appear much later. He could not understand how the timeline had changed this much. Akazel continued. He told Ronan that their own academy was at the very center of this situation. The Witch of Winter had been last year's most promising incoming student. A girl from the northern region. Her name was Evelyn Droza. From the very first senior and junior orientation, she had drawn the attention of everyone around her. The reason was simple. She had achieved an overwhelming victory against Erzsébet. She had taken her down without much effort at all. Everyone at Phalion had agreed that a once-in-a-century genius had just enrolled. Ronan had not expected Evelyn to have beaten Erzsébet. Then one day, at the very center of Phalion Plaza, Evelyn went berserk. She unleashed a terrifying cold that spread across everything. And that was how this winter began. Ronan asked where Evelyn was now. Given the state of the capital, he was fairly certain she was not dead. He asked if no one had been able to track her location. Assel shook his head and told him not to worry about that part. He revealed to Ronan that Evelyn is currently in Gingdulan, the Fortress of Screams. She is locked up in unbreakable ice. Ice that she created herself. Assel continued explaining everything to Ronan around the campfire. He told him that the moment Evelyn's cold rampage erupted at the heart of Phalion Academy, it did not stay contained within the academy walls. It spread instantly across the entire imperial capital. The scale of it was immediate and overwhelming. The professors of the academy responded right away. Navy Rose and the others charged directly at Evelyn to stop her. But before they could get close enough to do anything, the girl raised an enormous wall of ice between herself and everyone trying to reach her. The professors were completely cut off. Eventually, they managed to subdue her. But that was only the beginning of the problem. The mysterious cold still covered the entire capital. And Evelyn had sealed herself away inside some kind of unbreakable ice that nobody had ever seen before. She was locked inside it. Unreachable. Ronan asked what Assel meant by that. He could not wrap his head around it. Adeshan stepped in and told him that things are exactly as he heard. She explained to him that the seal Evelyn created is in a completely different league from any known magic in their world. It is less like a spell and more like a phenomenon that goes beyond the rules of magic entirely. Instructor Navy Rose tried to break it. The Sword Saint Jaipa tried. Other powerful figures tried. None of them were able to leave even a single scratch on the ice. Ronan went quiet. He remembered. In his previous life, the Witch of Winter was a catastrophe that went far beyond what anyone could imagine. Compared to what she eventually became, everything that had happened so far was almost small in scale. Back then, it was not just extreme cold. The entire capital had been frozen solid inside a massive iceberg. Citizens who had not mastered cold resistance were frozen without even realizing what was happening to them. The reason she had been so nearly impossible to defeat was because of two things. First, she possessed an ultra-wide area ice spell that functioned less like magic and more like a natural disaster. Second, she had an overwhelming amount of mana that allowed her to cast endlessly within her own domain without ever running out. In his previous life, there had been only one person capable of standing against that kind of power. Another disaster entirely. Sword Saint Shelipin. The two of them were perfectly matched monsters. Their battle changed the terrain of the empire. They fought without stopping for 10 consecutive days. At the very final moment, Shelipin managed to drive his sword into the witch's heart, and barely came out victorious. But here was the thing that Ronan could not ignore. In his previous life, the Witch of Winter was powerful enough to be recorded in imperial history. But she had never possessed anything like an absolute defense. That was new. Something had changed. Something had given her a power she was never supposed to have. Ronan was certain he knew what was behind this. Nebula Klager. This level of destruction and danger was no different from an open declaration of war against the Empire. And if that organization was willing to be this obvious about it, then someone high up was involved. A bishop-level figure might be pulling the strings behind all of this. Ronan sat with that thought for a moment. He looked at the fire and said quietly that this was quite the welcome party to wake up to. Martia noticed the look on his face. She told him not to worry too much. She said that the long winter is finally about to come to an end. Ronan looked at her and asked if something had been figured out. Martia told him that the imperial family had made a decision not long ago. They concluded that this situation had gone beyond what humans alone could handle. So the emperor reached out and requested help from the Mother of Fire, kin to Navardoje. The scene shifts completely. We are taken far away from the snow to a volcano. A vast burning landscape where red dragons move through heat and fire like it is simply air. At the center of it all is a throne, and seated on that throne is a figure that commands absolute silence from everything around her. One of the dragons approaches and lowers his head. He asks if she called for him. He addresses her as the master of all species. This woman with long red hair is the Mother of Fire. She tells her subordinate that she has accepted the request of the King of Humans. She acknowledges that it is an unspoken rule that their tribe does not involve itself in the affairs of the world below. But as guardians of all land and sky, they cannot simply stand by and watch as something like this runs rampant across the earth. She calls out a name. Her son, Tarband. The moment he hears his name called, Tarband raises his head, and then he watches as his mother begins to change. The Mother of Fire transforms. Her shape expands into something enormous. A dragon so massive that every other creature around her suddenly looks insignificant by comparison. Her eyes burn with something ancient and absolute. She gives her son his orders. Go to the land of humans. Drive out the winter. Raise the will of fires. Scatter the ashes of those who trample upon the world, and let it stand as a warning to every living being. Tarband accepts without hesitation. Fire erupts around him as he begins his own transformation. The flames wrap around his form and reshape it entirely. When they clear, he is standing in human form. Red hair. Red clothes. Eyes that carry the same burning certainty as his mother's. He looks up at her and tells her that her word is his command. The fire roars around him. The scene shifts, and we are taken to the imperial capital, Dalon. The city is covered in snow. Everything is quiet and exhausted looking. Ronan and Assel are walking through the streets together. Ronan thinks back to how the others returned to their guard duties the moment they got back from escorting the merchant convoy. He looks over at Assel and reminds him that he said he was going to rest a bit before heading out to help with the building repairs. Assel explains that his telekinesis magic is actually very useful for construction work right now. He looks around at the state of the city and tells Ronan that everything is exhausting, but there is nothing they can do about it. Ronan smiles and says that everyone is working hard. He tells himself that he cannot just lie around doing nothing simply because 2 years have passed. Then he stops walking. His expression changes completely. He is staring at his own house. And surrounding it from every direction is an enormous fortress wall. From the entrance all the way up to the rooftop, heavily armed knights are stationed everywhere. Ronan cannot believe what he is looking at. He asks out loud what the hell this bizarre setup is. He wants to know why there is a fortress wall around his house. Asel reminds him that Shelipin said there was no safer place in the entire capital than his house. He tells Ronan that right after he left to break the curse, Shelipin purchased all the surrounding land. He even paid double the going price. Then he mobilized every connection his family had and completed the entire construction in an instant.
Asel adds that the speed of construction alone was probably a record.
Ronan shakes his head. He thinks to himself that Shelipin never really understood what moderation meant. But he smiles anyway. He left his sister with someone like that on purpose. He looks up at the fortress and notices something else. The energy coming from inside is completely different from what he remembered. It is sharp, focused, dangerous. Ronan wonders quietly if Shelipin has reached Aura Awakening.
He tells Asel he wants to see how much stronger the boy has become. They walk inside. What Ronan finds is not what he expected. Shelipin is standing in the middle of the room wearing a strange apron and cleaning the house. He does not seem surprised at all to see Ronan. He looks up casually and tells him that he was wondering why some familiar and rough energy was wandering around outside. He says his guess was correct. Then he tells Ronan that he really took his time.
Ronan stares at him. He asks Shelipin what he is doing. Shelipin tells him he is cleaning. He explains that dust is a genuine threat to Irel's respiratory system, and that it is only natural to handle it as a priority.
Ronan's expression shifts to irritation.
He asks Shelipin why he is the one doing the cleaning. He asks him why he is walking around someone else's house like it is the most natural thing in the world. He tells him that if he is acting as a guard, he should be at the fortress. He asks him exactly who he thinks he is. Shelipin looks at him. With a calm smile, he says that it has been such a long time.
He tells Ronan that he and Irel went through a lot together while he was asleep. He says they were happy together. He calls it the most glorious time of his life.
Ronan reaches for his sword. He tells Asel that he is going to kill Shelipin today. Asel immediately grabs his arm and tells him to calm down. Shelipin tilts his head and asks if Ronan is inviting him for a spar. He says he is a bit busy right now. Ronan tells him to explain himself immediately. He asks him what he means by the great undertaking. He tells Shelipin that if it is what he thinks, then today will be his last day. Then a voice comes from the doorway. Someone says that they recognize that voice. Ronan stops. He turns around. Standing there is his sister Irel. She looks at her little brother and starts to cry. The two of them stand facing each other in silence for a moment. Ronan looks at her and apologizes quietly for being late. A little while later, everyone is sitting down together. Ronan asks Shelipin if what he meant by the great undertaking was simply cleaning the house. Irel says yes. She explains to Ronan that Shelipin comes over to help her whenever he can find time between his imperial security duties. She smiles at Shelipin and tells Ronan that she later found out that cleaning is actually his hobby.
Shelipin gives a thumbs up and confirms this without any embarrassment.
He says he cannot imagine his life without cleaning. Ronan and Asel have no words. Shelipin then turns to Ronan with a look on his face and says that he does not understand how someone as refined as Irel ended up with a younger sibling like him. Ronan tells him he is the one who should be saying that. He wonders out loud what kind of family produces someone like Shelipin. Irel turns to her brother and asks him again if he is really okay. Ronan tells her he is fine. He says she keeps asking the same question. He assures her that nothing like that will happen to him again. Shelipin watches the two of them. Then he quietly takes off the apron and stands up. He says it is time for the guests to leave.
He tells Ronan to take some time to catch up with his family. Ronan is surprised. He thought Shelipin had some time off. Shelipin tells him that suspicious activity has been detected in the northern region. He needs to travel north on behalf of House Grania to inspect the front line personally. He says he was worried about leaving while Ronan was still unconscious, but he no longer has that concern. He looks carefully at Ronan and senses the energy around him. He tells him that he is not worried anymore, because he is here now. The two of them look at each other. The energy around both of them takes shape. Two monsters standing in the same room, both of them much stronger than before. Ronan smiles and asks Shelipin to book a few tickets under his family name before he goes. Shelipin raises an eyebrow.
Ronan tells him there is somewhere he needs to be. He asks Shelipin to book tickets to Rodolin.
The scene shifts completely. We are taken to a prison, dark, cold, heavy chains everywhere. Prisoners badly injured and barely conscious are scattered across the floor. This section of the prison is identified as the Nebula Clagger Special Confinement Ward. Inside one of the cells, 2 prisoners are held up in chains. One of them is Cyrilla. She was charged with terrorism at the Grand Cappadocia. The other is Dolan. He carried out espionage against the Gracia Duchy. Both of them are barely breathing.
Then someone appears in front of them, dressed in white, moving quietly. The figure speaks. They say that it is quite sad to see so many believers suffering such cruel persecution.
They tell Cyrilla and Dolan that they have endured well without losing their faith.
Cyrilla goes still. She can feel something coming off this person. A refined and powerful energy. The power of the star. The figure raises a hand and tells her to be at ease. They release their energy and speak to their believers. They tell them that the pain swelling inside them and all their sorrow and suffering will finally bear a sacred fruit. The figure gathers their energy and asks the children of the star to follow them. With a wide and unsettling smile, they tell them that they will lead the way.
The scene shifts back to the imperial capital. Ronan and Asel are walking together through the snow-covered streets. Ronan tells Asel that the earliest airship to Rodolin leaves in 3 days. He cannot believe they are being held back like this when every second counts. Asel reminds him that it has not even been a full day since he woke up after 2 years. He tells Ronan that he needs to learn when to rest. Ronan admits that he might be a little impatient. Then he looks at Asel and tells him that walking together like this reminds him of the old days. He brings up how Asel told him back then that a loser like him could never get into Phaleon. He asks him if he remembers crying his eyes out over it. Asel immediately looks embarrassed. He tells Ronan that he was not that pathetic. Then he quietly admits that he would probably still be getting bullied back in Nympton if it were not for him. Ronan laughs and tells him that he would have wasted his telekinesis ability performing as a circus clown. The two of them laugh together as they walk. After a moment, Ronan turns serious again. He asks Asel about the situation in Rodolin. He figures that a place holding the Witch of Winter cannot possibly be peaceful. Asel tells him that they probably will not get a single quiet day once they arrive. He explains to Ronan what happened after Evelyn was transferred to Rodolin. The imperial family made a major announcement. They declared that they would reward anyone who could break the ice surrounding Evelyn and bring the endless winter to an end. After that announcement, hidden masters who had concealed their strength for years came forward. Captains of renowned knight orders arrived. Distinguished mages from the great magic tower made their way to Rodolin. Powerful figures from all across the empire gathered there. None of them were able to end the winter. Asel also tells him that all their professors have been dispatched to various regions to help find a way to resolve the crisis. He says it is a shame because they would have been happy to see Ronan return. Ronan thinks about that for a moment. He is not so sure about all of them. He figures that Instructor Naviros would start swinging her sword at him the moment she saw him. He asks Asel how Erzabet is doing. He figures that getting defeated by the Witch of Winter must have hit her pride pretty hard. Asel shakes his head. He tells Ronan that Erzabet actually has an enormous amount of willpower. The moment she was defeated, she went straight into special training. Asel tells him what she said when they asked her about it. She told them that it was actually for the better. She said she was finally able to learn what defeat felt like. She smiled and said that once she overcomes this, she will have perfected one more level as an Akaluja. Ronan is not surprised at all. That sounds exactly like something she would say. Asel then tells him that Erzabet is now part of their group. She followed in Adeshan's footsteps. Ronan smiles when he hears this. He tells Asel that he actually had his eye on her for a while now. Asel tells him that everyone in the group has been training incredibly hard. Brahm and Maria have both become incomparably stronger than before. Adeshan has even been chosen as the head of the student council. And Asel himself has been training with the grimoire Ronan gave him. He says he might not yet meet Ronan's standards, but he has not given up on it. Ronan had not expected Asel to have pushed through that grimoire without quitting. He tells him they need to check out his new skills right now. Asel does not understand what he means. Before he can ask, Ronan swings his sword. A single swing sends everything around them flying. Ronan tells Asel calmly that he was curious whether he could stop his blade before it reached him. He did not expect Asel to actually stop it. The boy used his telekinesis and caught the sword before it could hit him. Asel lets out a nervous laugh and tells Ronan that he is being way too much. He asks him if he is going to be like this after 2 years away. Then his expression shifts. He covers his fingers in energy and tells Ronan that he wants to show him just how hard they have all been working. He raises the ground beneath Ronan's feet with his telekinesis. Ronan is caught off guard for a moment. Asel follows up immediately. He pulls massive rocks up from the ground and fires them straight at Ronan. Ronan smiles. He tells him he has really improved. The rocks close in around him completely. Asel drives a sharp, thin stone through the middle of the cluster from below. But his opponent is Ronan. Ronan swings his sword and shatters the rocks around him. He draws his dagger and throws it straight at Asel. Asel creates a transparent barrier in the air and stops the dagger in place. While he is holding it there, Ronan appears directly behind him. Asel senses him. He spins around and fires his energy and the dagger back at Ronan at the same time. Ronan's sword meets both attacks head-on. The clash blows everything around them away. The dagger gets thrown up into the air. Ronan catches it on the way down. He looks at Asel and tells him that a lot has changed in 2 years. His casting speed, his battle reactions, and even his eyes are completely different now. Asel wipes the sweat from his face and says that he worked very hard. Ronan spins his dagger and puts it away. He looks at Asel and tells him that he passes. Then, with a wide smile on his face, he tells him to be happy. He has decided to take him along on his very first adventure as a celebration of his grand return. Then he gives Asel a look and asks him quietly if he knows what happens if he refuses. Asel goes pale. He realizes immediately that he has no way out of this. 3 days later, we are taken to a port filled with airships. Ronan and Asel are standing together waiting. Asel asks Ronan if he is waiting for someone. Ronan says yes. A figure approaches through the snow. She has a large scar across her face. She walks with the kind of presence that fills the space around her. Ronan tells Asel that he is waiting for a scary friend who has business with the Witch of Winter. The figure steps forward and her name appears on the page. Erzsébet Akaluja. She is older now. The scar on her face is new, and everything about her says that the last 2 years were not spent resting.
The scene takes us back one day before Ronan departed for Ronan. We see Erzsébet standing alone on a balcony looking out at the academy. The snow is falling quietly around her. Someone appears behind her and tells her that she is going to freeze, standing out there like that. Erzsébet smiles without turning around. She tells Ronan that he is still just as shameless as ever even after 2 years. She welcomes him back. Ronan waves and asks her why she is not acting surprised. He tells her this was supposed to be a surprise visit. Erzsébet explains that she cannot really pretend to be surprised, because his energy stands out far too much. She tells him she felt his presence the moment he woke up. She had already known that he broke the curse. Ronan smiles and admits that it took a little longer than he expected. And then he looks at her properly and tells her that she seems to have trained very hard. He says he cannot even compare her to what she was 2 years ago. Erzsébet smiles quietly and says that this is only natural for someone who carries the Akalusia name. Then she adds that there are still some things she has not fully worked out yet. Ronan glances at the scar on her face. It reaches all the way down to her hand. He reaches into his coat and pulls out a ticket. He tells her that he has found exactly the right person for this adventure. He asks her to come with him to Ronan. Erzsébet looks at the airship ticket in his hand. Her expression shifts. Ronan tells her that he is going to visit Evelyn. He asks her if she does not think it is about time for a revenge match. She goes still. Ronan asks her directly. He asks if she kept the scar that could have been healed with a single potion just to remember her defeat. He tells her that no matter how many days she stands there, replaying that fight in her head, she will not change anything by doing that. He tells her that sometimes the only answer is to face a problem head-on. Elizabeth is quiet for a moment. Then she tells him that he is the only person who would speak about a lady's inner thoughts without a single consideration for her feelings. She tells him he still has absolutely no manners. Then she uses her magic to pull the ticket right out of his hand. She tells him she will come to Ronan. The scene shifts, and we see the airship approaching a large and grim-looking prison island. When Ronan and his group arrive at the entrance, a figure comes out to greet them. He is wearing a chrome mask. He thanks them for coming all this way and introduces himself as Guard K. He says he is in charge of today's reception and invites them to call him K. He tells them it is an honor to be hosting such talented individuals from Phaleon. Ronan glances back and notices that Aesel is already shaking behind him. He asks him if he is scared before they have even gone inside. He tells him the inside is much worse than this. Aesel cannot believe what he is hearing. Guard K turns and asks them to follow him. He tells them he will escort them directly to where the Witch of Winter is being held. As they walk through the prison, they pass cells filled with Nebula Clagger cultists. Some of them are calling out to the star, asking for its blessing. Ronan says quietly that this place is still as intense as ever. He asks Guard K if everyone here is a believer of the church. Guard K does not answer. He simply tells them that they have arrived, and asks them to protect their bodies with mana, because the cold inside is extreme. Opens the door slowly, and explains as they enter. This place is a special facility established for the containment of high-risk criminals. It is currently holding only one person. It is known as the Abyss, Judecca. Ronan steps inside and sees her immediately. Evelyn Droza. She looks younger than he expected, but he is certain. This is the Witch of Winter, the girl who turned the entire empire into ice. She is sealed inside a prison of her own making, frozen and completely still. Elizabeth stares at her in silence. Guard K tells the group that there is currently a challenger attempting to break the ice. He asks them to watch. The challenger steps forward. He identifies himself as Cairo Bunta, Knight Commander of the Humanist Knight Order. He raises his sword and declares that he will cut through the ice with a single strike and save the Empire. He swings with everything he has. His sword shatters. Cairo stands there staring at the broken blade in his hand. He cannot process what just happened. He says it out loud. That sword was a legendary blade passed down through generations of the Knight Order. It did not leave a single scratch. Another figure steps forward from the side. He tells Cairo that this is exactly why knights are useless. He says they always try to solve everything through brute force. He gathers fire energy into his staff and declares that true salvation comes from those who study the laws of nature. From mages, he raises his staff and builds an enormous flame above him. He says that one of the unchanging truths of the world is that ice is weak against fire. He releases it. Inferno. The flames crash into the ice prison with devastating force. The heat fills the entire room. Elizabeth watches with wide eyes. She had not expected the mage to unleash something comparable to the high-ranking magic of the Dawn Magic Tower. The fire fades. The ice is completely untouched. Aesel says quietly that the knight's strike was flawless in every way. He cannot understand why it did not even scratch the surface. He wonders out loud what the source of Evelyn's magic actually is. Ronan already knows. Both of those men were skilled. They were simply unlucky, because what is protecting that ice is not just Evelyn's power. The blessing of the star has been imbued directly into the ice. The church's power is woven into it. Ronan wonders whether Evelyn was connected to the church all along. If the blessing of the star is the root of this, then cutting through the ice should not be beyond him. But something feels off. This situation is different from anything that happened in his previous life. And this prison is likely already full of the church's eyes and ears. If he acts now, his cards will be revealed. He decides to observe first.
Investigate quietly. There will still be time to cut through the ice once he understands the full picture. Then something changes. A voice comes from outside the room. Lowly. It says that the stench of the lowly fills this place. It says it is disgusting. The moment those words land, the person behind them releases their energy directly into the abyss. Ronan feels it immediately, and his eyes sharpen.
The energy floods the room in an instant. The Knight Commander and the Mage both drop to their knees without even understanding why. Their bodies simply cannot resist it. Ronan stands firm, but he recognizes what this is. He has felt something like this before, a violent and oppressive presence that makes the gap between races feel absolute and impossible to cross. It is similar to what he experienced in the memories of the Savior. This is the pressure of a dragon. Istarband walks into the room, red hair, red eyes, fire trailing from his body. He looks at everyone kneeling around him and tells them to bow their heads and revere what stands before them. For this is the salvation of fire, and it will end this winter.
The chapter opens deep inside the underground prison where the Witch of Winter is being held. The moment the pressure hits, the entire facility begins to shake. It feels less like a presence entering a room and more like an earthquake tearing through the foundation itself. Everyone in the room is feeling it. Everyone except Ronan's group is being crushed under the weight of it. Standing at the center of it all is Itarband. His red eyes are burning, and his presence alone is enough to push everyone toward the ground. He looks at Guard K, who is kneeling on the floor, and tells him to report the situation to the warden of this rat nest. He also reminds him that he gave clear orders that not a single soul was to remain here before his arrival. Guard K is terrified. He manages to speak through the crushing pressure with a shaking voice. He apologizes immediately, and explains that they were informed Itarband would be arriving tomorrow. That was the schedule they had been given.
That excuse does nothing but make things worse. Itarband mocks him for daring to make an excuse in his presence. He says, "How dare a mere mortal speak of his faults?" As if he himself was the one mistaken. His anger climbs, and the pressure in the room climbs with it. People nearby start coughing blood under the sheer weight of it. Even Erzsébet and Assel are visibly struggling now.
Filled with arrogance, Itarband declares that simply witnessing the presence of the fire race should be considered an honor for mortals like them. He looks around at everyone with contempt and calls them nothing more than worthless trash. Then he tells Guard K that the very fact that the Great Fire Clan has decided to come here in person already grants him more honor than he deserves. He is not finished.
Flames begin gathering directly on his palm. His hand glows with concentrated fire mana so dense that Guard K can barely process what he is looking at. For the first time in his life, he understands what the true power of a dragon actually feels like.
Istarband raises 2 fingers.
All the flame in the room pulls toward them, his eyes blazed. He coldly orders Guard K to turn to ash. Then a hand appears and shoves his arm aside. Itarband stops. His eyes shift. Someone has actually moved through his pressure and stopped the attack outright. The shock registers on his face for just a moment. He had not expected anyone in this room to be capable of that. Then Ronan speaks to Itarband, saying even teenage tantrums has its limitations. Then called the dragon a lizard. Ronan glares at him with angry face and threatens the dragon, saying that if he pushes any further, then it won't end in just words. For a moment, Ronan himself looks visibly furious. The pressure in the room lifts. Everyone breathes again. Erzsébet admits quietly that things had gotten dangerously close. She immediately checks on Assel. Assel tells her that he is fine, but only because of her protective magic, and thanks her for keeping him safe. Nearby, Guard K is still staring at Ronan in disbelief. He had heard rumors that Lord Karaka's student was incredibly talented.
But hearing about it and witnessing it firsthand are 2 completely different things. Ronan had just confronted a dragon completely alone. Itarband glares at Ronan and demands to know if those disrespectful words were truly directed at him. Ronan confirms it without hesitation. He asks if there is any other immature little lizard standing there besides him. He adds that someone like him would normally just be called a hatchling. But if he wants respect, he needs to start behaving in a way that earns it.
Then Ronan asks him directly. He asks if Itarband had really intended to burn this entire place down, knowing that countless innocent people would be caught in it. He demands to know exactly what he was thinking. And he makes it clear that whatever this was, it could not possibly have been the will of the Mother of Fire. Itarband answers coldly. According to his mother's orders, the one who created the ice was meant to be burned away completely. She never once said anything about protecting mortals. As far as he is concerned, the humans standing here are nothing more than insects in his way. The moment he finishes speaking, he launches his attack. The force of it cracks the ground itself. But Itarband freezes when he sees Ronan block it completely. Ronan tells him plainly that he is the one who started this. Then he shoves Itarband's arm back and surges forward with his dagger drawn. Itarband prepares his own counterattack at the same instant. Both of them are a heartbeat away from striking each other. That is when the chains appear. They come from nowhere, wrapping around both of their arms at once, restraining them mid-motion. Above them, a marked figure floats in the air, controlling every chain with absolute precision.
Even Ronan is caught off guard.
He had not sensed even the faintest trace of this man's presence before this moment. The man pulls the chains tight, forcing Ronan and Itarband apart while still suspended in the air. Itarband looks genuinely confused for the first time. Then Ronan can feel that this power is not simply restraining his body. It is reaching into his mana itself. The man speaks calmly. He reminds both of them exactly where they are standing. He describes this place as the deepest darkness of the Empire, the very thing that protects the Empire's light.
Because of that, every rule here must be obeyed, without exception.
He warns them both to behave, because as the one in charge of Rodolin, he will not tolerate this kind of disturbance. He adds that if today's incident reaches the Mother of Fire, it would become deeply embarrassing for the Heir of Fire as well.
Itarband's eyes narrow.
He accuses the man of threatening him, mocking his boldness, and wonders aloud what would happen if there was no one left alive to report it. The marked man does not flinch. He tells him calmly that he seems blinded by the power of his own race. Even so, the laws of Rodolin must be upheld no matter what. At that moment, more marked figures appear around them. The atmosphere turns razor sharp. The man declares that even if enforcing the law costs him his own life, he will carry out his duty regardless. Itarband feels the full weight of how serious this has become. Slowly he begins breaking free of the chains. Then he delivers his final warning. It gives them exactly 1 day. The next time he sets foot in this place, not a single mortal should remain. There will not be a second chance. With that, he turns and walks out of the room. Watching him go only makes Ronan angrier. He cannot help but wonder just how badly the Mother of Fire raised her children for them to turn out with personalities like this. Still, he has to admit, personality aside, the dragon's strength was undeniably real.
Ronan turns toward the man who intervened, a small smile breaking through his irritation.
He tells him that he arrived at exactly the right time, and that it has been a long time. The man smiles back. "Long time no see, Karaka." Karaka looks him over, something close to pride settling into his expression as he responds. "Long time no see, Ronan." He tells him that he has turned into a truly exceptional man. The scene shifts back to Rodolin. Outside the window, heavy snow continues to fall, covering everything in freezing white. Inside one of the rooms, an old man apologizes to the group for bringing them to such a poor place to stay. He explains that they had no other choice and asks for their understanding. Ronan responds immediately that they are not here on vacation. As far as he is concerned, even this arrangement is already more than enough.
Elizabeth looks visibly irritated the moment she sees the state of the bed in the room. Ronan notices and asks if something is wrong. She calmly tells him there is nothing to worry about. Everything is fine. Ronan then turns to Karaka and brings up Evelyn, the Witch of Winter. He mentions that quite some time has already passed since her imprisonment here, and asks if they have uncovered anything useful about her during that period. Since Karaka already knows who they really are, he sees no reason to hide anything anymore. He begins explaining. It has been exactly 1 year since Evelyn was captured. During that time, investigators were sent to her homeland in the north to dig into her entire past. What they found turned out to be far more interesting than anyone expected. According to Karaka, Evelyn Droza, once known simply as a promising new student, had actually been raised and prepared as a test subject by the Droza family. Their goal was to create someone capable of destroying the Akalusia bloodline itself. Erzsébet's expression shifts the moment she hears that. The shock is real, as Karaka continues. The Droza family had once been one of the core noble houses of the north. Generations ago, they held enormous wealth and influence at one point, with a status that stood equal to House Akalusia itself. But at some point, all of that prosperity collapsed completely. Karaka glances at Erzsébet, implying that she probably already knows the reason behind it. Erzsébet says nothing. She simply stares quietly at her locket as he continues speaking. He explains that the downfall began with the Akalusia invitation system. House Akalusia had once announced that anyone strong enough could join their family, regardless of background or bloodline. Power alone was what mattered to them. Because of that open invitation, many powerful individuals from other noble houses abandoned their original families to join Akalusia instead. As a result, numerous noble lines lost their strongest members one by one, and slowly fell into decline. The Droza family was one of those that collapsed. Their wealth dried up. Their influence disappeared. And eventually a family that once stood among the most powerful in the north faded quietly into history. Over the years that followed, something darker took root in what remained of them. Jealousy. Hatred. It grew slowly and never stopped. Karaka reveals that investigators found evidence of forbidden magic being practiced within the family. Extremely dangerous training methods as well, all of it pointing toward one purpose: revenge against someone. Ronan asks him directly if the Droza family itself is involved in what is happening now here. He wants Karaka's honest opinion, not a guess. Karaka admits there is currently no reliable way to know for certain. Ever since the endless winter began, every single remaining member of the Droza family vanished without a trace. Even Ronan finds that difficult to accept, and an entire family does not simply disappear. Karaka confirms quietly that because of their disappearance, there has been no way to push the investigation any further. Given the current situation, he explains that breaking the ice as soon as possible has become absolutely necessary. At that moment, something shifts in Karaka's expression. A signal reaches him directly. He sets it aside for now and turns back to the group. Peace. He tells them that everyone here is holding extremely high expectations for what they can accomplish. Even with the heir of fire and the dragon already present in Rodelin, he admits personally that he trusts people like them far more. His instincts tell him that they are the ones who will actually end this endless winter. With that, he decides to let them rest after their journey. He promises that when their turn comes tomorrow morning, he will personally come to retrieve them. He wishes them a good night and leaves the room. The moment he steps outside, his expression changes completely. He turns to the man standing beside him and asks about the transmission he just received. The man confirms that it is real and delivers the report again. According to the report, members of the order who had been imprisoned have suddenly gone insane. They have started a violent riot inside the prison. The scene shifts to the prison itself. The order members no longer look human. They move like the dead, attacking anyone in reach without hesitation, even the marked guards stationed to contain them. In the middle of the chaos stands a man badly wounded from trying to hold the line. It is Guard K, the same man who escorted Ronan's group earlier. He cannot understand how this happened. Hours ago, these prisoners could barely breathe under their own restraints. Now they have torn through one of the most secure cells in the entire facility like it was nothing. One of them lunges at him, fist raised. Before the blow can land, chains snap through the air and drag the attacker backward. Karaka has arrived. He moves through the room, binding prisoner after prisoner with his chains. The crazed inmates immediately turn their focus toward him. Guard K feels something close to relief at the sight of him. Karaka stares at the prisoners now restrained in front of him and speaks coldly. He reminds them how much effort it took to remove their fangs, tear out their claws, and cut away the danger in them after their last uprising. He tells them they were treated fairly, like everyone else. And still, they turned around and stabbed him in the back. He says quietly that this betrayal has shattered something in him. Around the prison, many guards have already fallen. One of the survivors shouts for reinforcements, ordering everyone to suppress the prisoners before their numbers thin out any further. If they lose any more people, holding the line becomes impossible. The remaining guards push forward. One drives a hammer and chisel weapon straight into a prisoner's mouth, shattering his teeth and tearing his jaw apart before he collapses. Two more rush in immediately to fill the gap. Another guard swings and sends both of them slamming into the wall. Behind them stands a girl named Q, fighting alongside a boy named P. None of it slows the prisoners down. They keep coming. Guard K's condition is getting worse by the second. Karaka kneels beside him and asks if he is alright. Guard K manages a weak response. Karaka tries to reassure him, telling him that a healthcare team is on its way. Guard K already knows better. He has lost too much blood. Instead of asking to be saved, he begs Karaka to focus on the comrades who can still be saved. He warns him that this riot has too many suspicious elements to be a coincidence. Someone is controlling all of this from behind the scenes. With the last of his strength, he asks Karaka to protect the Empire's traditions and safeguard Ronan itself. Then he is gone. Karaka feels the weight of it settle over him. Slowly he rises to his feet. He admits to himself that this has become an enormous problem. Looking at everything unfolding around him, he already knows this is going to be a very long night. The chapter opens with a quiet memory. A masked figure recalls Guard K's past, the kind of past nobody at the prison ever knew about. K had no family left. As a child, bandits slaughtered everyone he had, leaving him completely alone in the world. He could have let that loss break him. He did not. Instead, he kept standing back up, again and again, carving out a path for himself piece by piece. That path eventually led him to Ronan. The masked figure remembers K's very first day as a newly appointed guard. The passion in his voice, the determination in his eyes. K had stood there and spoken about his ambitions, about the kind of guard he wanted to be, and reported his resolve to serve with everything he had. The memory shifts toward Karaka. In it, K declares his vow as a guard of Ronan. He promises to handle every threat with absolute diligence, to protect the Empire and guarantee its safety. His goal was simple. He never wanted innocent civilians to suffer the kind of sorrow he had suffered as a child. He swore to give everything he had, and thanked Karaka, the interrogation chief, for the chance to do it. He pledged to carry out any order necessary for the peace of the Empire. The memory fades. We are back in the present. That same man now lies captured in the hands of the masked figures. His condition is horrific. Blood covers nearly every inch of him. He is barely holding on to life. The masked group forces a strange crow-shaped mask onto his face. One of them speaks. They declare that one of the lamps that once lit this empire has just been extinguished. At the same moment, orders go out to Q, P, and Focus. Prioritize saving anyone who can still be saved. Then the masked man steps forward and announces that he is taking direct control of all law enforcement here, effective immediately. His message to the rioters is simple and absolute. They no longer have any rights.
A chain appears around his hand. One end of it is shaped like a hammer. The other end tapers into a sharp, cone-shaped point. With death in his eyes, Karaka says there will only be merciless judgment. Pressure builds inside the special confinement cells. Suddenly, one end of the chain shoots forward and takes a prisoner's head off instantly. He dies on the spot before he even understands what happened. The two prisoners standing on either side of him freeze. They are still staring at their dead companion, struggling to process how fast it happened, when the chain wraps around both of them at once. They get yanked straight to the ground and killed instantly as Karaka appears right beside them. Karaka stares straight ahead. His eyes have turned red. A group of prisoners lunges at him, trying to bring him down. Karaka spins the chain wildly and hurls it straight into them. Arms and heads are torn away from bodies in the same motion. He stands in the middle of a spreading pool of blood, chain still in hand. Then he sees a massive prisoner standing his ground, trying to face him while the others push him forward from behind. Karaka throws his chain at the giant. The giant smirks and catches it with his bare hands. For a moment, Karaka is genuinely caught off guard. With menace creeping into his voice, Karaka tells him to hold on tight to that chain, because now he is coming for him. The giant's expression shifts the instant he hears it. A blinding strike lands a moment later. Karaka's fist connects directly with his face and slams him into the ground with overwhelming force. His chain keeps moving, cutting straight through the rest of the group as he walks through them. Two surviving guards, Q and P, stand frozen, watching the carnage unfold. Q says quietly that it has been a long time since they have seen Karaka this angry. P responds that it only means one thing. The situation is exactly that dangerous. He continues that that's why he has another nickname, Rodalin's Nightmare. The remaining rioters look terrified now. They stare at the bodies of their fallen comrades, horror written across their faces. Karaka, his eyes still glowing red, calls out the next prisoner to be executed. He takes one step forward. The prisoners take one step back. Looking at him, they understand exactly what their lives are worth right now. With horrified, panicked screams, they turn and run from him. Walking after them, Karaka says it is no use. This is Rodolan, the fortress of screams that never lets the guilty go. He continues, for those who cannot cleanse their sins, there is no path of escape. Then he stops, mid-sentence. A rippling purple energy radiates outward from deep within the darkness as he stares into the abyss of the prison. Suddenly, every fleeing prisoner's face begins to swell. Bigger and bigger. Then all of their heads explode at once. Karaka, Guard P, and Guard Q are all left stunned. A voice speaks from the shadows. How shocking, it says, as the speaker steps slowly into the light. She says that Karaka managed to instill fear into these prisoners again, even after their fear had already been completely stripped away from them. She continues, almost admiring him. He has remarkable talent, she says, and he is wasting it away as nothing more than a gatekeeper standing behind iron bars. So she will grant him a chance at something greater, a chance at glory. With a smile spreading across her face, the woman asks Karaka a single question. Would you like to become mine? The chapter opens with Karaka and the mysterious woman standing face to face. She asks him the question again. Would he like to become hers? She tells him she can offer him the greatest glory, an escape from this gloomy cave. Karaka studies her with quiet curiosity as she continues. She tells him he could spend the rest of his life in salvation, under her. With a wide, unsettling smile, she introduces herself. The Bishop of the North. Karaka's surprise flickers across his face for just a moment. Then his mind starts moving fast. He gives the order. PQ. From this moment, lock down Rodolan. Issue a Level 1 emergency response alert. He continues without pause. Q is to evacuate the wounded and request reinforcements from the Imperial Palace. P stays with him to deal with this directly. As he removes his mask, Karaka thinks to himself, a bishop. To think someone this valuable for interrogation would walk in here on her own 2 feet. With his mask now fully off and a faint smile on his face, he tells her that her wonderful cooperation leaves even him at a loss for words. He holds the mask loosely in one hand as he says it. He looks at her directly. Since things have turned out this way, could he ask her something simple? She replies with a faint hum of amusement. If it is him, she will allow it. Looking at the bodies scattered around them, chain still in hand, Karaka tells her plainly that her role as the instigator of this riot is already painfully obvious. So first, he wants to examine the condition of these people. He continues. Even with limbs torn off and skulls crushed, they kept charging forward endlessly, lost in madness and violence. He remembers them lunging at him and adds that in the middle of all that, There was not the slightest sign of life left in any of them. They were like butchered meat that had somehow come alive and started moving on its own. Based on everything he has seen in his career, this goes well beyond simple brainwashing. He lays out his theory. The most likely explanation is something that disrupts the very foundation of life itself. Strictly forbidden. Black magic. Control of the dead. They were almost certainly being puppeted by it. And it goes further than that. Not only did they massacre prisoners under heavy surveillance without warning, whoever did this also controlled this many people simultaneously. That kind of control requires power on an entirely different scale. A flicker of anger crosses his face. If there is a black mage in the Empire's entire history capable of something like this, he can think of only one. Intoxicated by madness. Someone who could never be controlled by anyone. The one true spiritual progenitor of black magic users. Leader of a heretical cult that worshipped death, blood, and vengeance. The head of Mournvale. The Veil of Sorrow. Seraphina de Mournvale. The Saintess of Death. The moment Karaka finishes, the bishop, purple aura swirling lazily around her, says with something close to nostalgia that those were the good old days. She pulls out a locket hanging around her neck. She tells him that name was merely what she carried during her ignorant days. He should call her Seraphina de Clegier now. Now, she says, she is a believer of the stars. A menacing smile spreads as she looks down at the locket. She tells him she ardently serves the one true God. Karaka glances back at one of his comrades. He tells her he will keep that in mind. At the same moment, a message comes through. The wounded have all been transferred to safety. With an expression caught somewhere between anger and suspicion, he puts his mask back on. He tells her that the fact someone of her standing made the trip here personally suggests she has a very clear objective. His eyes glow red beneath the mask as he asks her directly, "Is she planning to take the Witch of Winter?" She smiles, almost offended by the bluntness of it. "What a harsh choice of words," she says. An image of Evelyn flashes through the moment. The bishop explains plainly. She had been grooming that child from the very beginning to become the next bishop of Nebula. The girl already belongs to her. She continues, something almost sour crossing her expression. An unexpected variable forced her to keep the girl here temporarily. Her hand trembles slightly as she adds that the variable in question is going to serve as nourishment for her own perfection. Crazed excitement floods her eyes. She says the anticipation alone is making her entire body tremble, and her body does exactly that, shaking with something that looks closer to ecstasy than fear. She tells him she has danced to their tune long enough. Purple aura flares violently throughout the confined space as she asks him, with open menace, whether he will join her or not. Karaka responds calmly. "What a pity," he says. He had been hoping to get to know her a little better. He suggests they not be like this. Perhaps they should continue this conversation somewhere quieter. His interrogation room, for example. The moment he finishes speaking, a chain appears directly above her and snaps tight around her neck. Karaka pulls upward. She hangs there, suspended by the throat. She looks genuinely suffocated, the chain cutting tight around her neck. He tells her she will only break her own neck if she keeps struggling. Her voice comes out slow and strained as she says she cannot breathe. Then the chain falls apart. Her purple energy radiates outward from where the chain used to be. She says, almost as an afterthought, that she would also like to mention something. Karaka is genuinely shocked. Internally, he sinks at the realization. How can she melt an aura-bound restraint that easily? He wonders quietly whether his ambition of capturing a bishop alive was simply too much to ask for. As she drops back down, still looking straight ahead through the dissolving chain, she murmurs something. To steal the head start without hesitation. What an excellent subordinate he would make. Then he hits her hard. The bishop slams into the wall with a heavy thud. Her arm tears off and falls to the ground. Cracks spread out from where she hit the wall. She tells him, almost approvingly, that he is pretty good. He managed to injure her body, even broke her hand. She could probably make him the gatekeeper of her diocese. A magic circle forms where her severed arm used to be. She continues speaking as if nothing happened. At the same time, another magic circle appears around one of the nearby corpse's hands. That hand vanishes instantly. Her own arm restores itself immediately. She says it is honestly not a big deal at all. Karaka watches from a short distance, stunned. Her arm regenerated the instant the corpse's arm disappeared. He realizes what he is looking at. Black magic that uses corpses as an offering to restore flesh. This is becoming a serious problem. It means she is close to a mortal. The bishop stares at her restored hand with a crazed smile, clearly pleased with herself. She stands up, remarking that this is a hassle. It seems it will take some time to bring all of them under her control. She pulls something out of her coat. As she does, she tells them she unfortunately has urgent business elsewhere and cannot keep them company any longer. With a wide, crazed smile, she looks down at her palm and says she will have her trusted vessel greet them instead. Guard P and Karaka both brace themselves, alert and ready. The bishop throws the object in her hand toward them, remarking that it has been a while since it was used. Something rolls across the ground toward Guard P and Karaka. Black energy begins pulling out of the corpses scattered around the cell, flowing into the object the bishop threw. The object keeps rolling, slowly reshaping into something human. It comes to a stop right beside Guard P, curled up tight on the ground at his feet. Guard P stares down at it, unsure what he is even looking at. Then a blinding burst of motion comes straight for his face. The figure kicks him directly in the face. The force of it sends Guard P flying straight up toward the ceiling. With a darkened expression and a smile still on her face, the bishop tells the figure to enjoy this to his heart's content. She introduces him, the finest warrior of their church, Taranil. The chapter opens with blood spilling across the floor. Then the full picture comes into view. Guard P has been cut open, blood pouring from the wound. Looking down at himself, his mask cracked, Guard P thinks that if he had dodged even a fraction slower, his head would have been cleanly severed from his body. He cannot stop turning the thought over. A single kick did this much damage. At the same moment, Taranil, eyes glowing with a crazed light, lunges in to kick him again. A chain suddenly wraps around Guard P's hand. Karaka yanks him back with full force, pulling him out of the path of Taranil's brutal assault. Both of them watch as the follow-up kick slams into the wall instead, the impact violent enough to shake the entire room. Guard P falls in behind Karaka, breathing hard, and thanks him for the save. Karaka asks if he is okay. Karaka cannot shake the thought building inside him. This is an unprecedented trial. He keeps asking himself the same question. What exactly is this overwhelming fighting spirit radiating off Taranil? Taranil stands there, eyes glowing red, a violent aura flaring around his scarred body. The Bishop of the North watches him with open delight. She is thrilled to see him fighting on her behalf, even remarking with amusement that he fights like a primitive man. As she speaks, she conjures a purple magic circle and pulls a robe out from within it. She tells him that even so, Taranil needs to maintain his dignity. With that, she drapes the robe over his shoulders. She continues, almost fondly. 2 years ago, she found him as a corpse during a special mission. Now he belongs to her completely. With a crazed smile, she adds that once, he had been a proud member of the order. The Southern Bishop. The instant Karaka hears that title, he is struck still. It clicks into place immediately. He had been wondering why this presence felt so familiar, and now he knows why. 2 years ago, this man had been reported dead after a battle alongside Ronan and Shelipan in Dinar. With that same unsettling smile, the Bishop of the North looks at the corpse lying discarded beside her and confirms it. He had once been the highest-ranking executive of the order. Taranil. She leans in close to his ear and whispers something. She does not care if her opponents lose their limbs, she tells him. He only needs to make sure they stay alive. With a crazed grin and glowing green eyes, Taranil answers her with a low, guttural growl of agreement. The Bishop of the North turns and walks toward the door, leaving the room behind. As she goes, she tells her vessel to have fun. Almost as an afterthought, she adds that the 2 guards should enjoy themselves too, fighting against him. Karaka tightens his grip on the chain in his hand. He glances over at Guard P and asks if he can feel just how dangerous this enemy truly is. Both of them agree. This is something unprecedented in all of Rodalin's history. Terranil cracks his neck slowly, one hand resting against his chin. A deranged look settled into his expression. Karaka continues. He calls Terranil the most evil criminal they have ever faced, and tells P they need to use everything they have to put him down immediately. A metal bat rises into view, nails driven through its surface, blue energy crackling along its length. Guard P drops into a fighting stance, the bat held back behind him, ready to strike, blue aura swirling around its edge. He acknowledges the threat. He understands exactly what they are dealing with. Karaka keeps speaking, telling him this is for the security of the Empire. Before he can finish the sentence, Terranil is already there, driving a kick straight into Guard P's stomach. The bat's energy cuts out instantly. Guard P screams in agony, blood spilling from his mouth. Karaka is frozen for a split second, watching it happen. An explosion erupts where Guard P lands, thrown back by the force of the kick. Karaka stares at the wreckage, horror and worry breaking through his voice as he screams his name. P. Guard P lies on the ground, blood pooling around him, as Terranil plants a foot on his chest. Terranil raises his other leg, ready to crush him completely. Before he can bring it down, Karaka acts. He calls out the name of his technique as he throws the chain forward. Karaka's execution tool number 2. Guillotine. He wins the chain back and hurls it directly at Terranil. Terranil simply raises his leg and kicks it away, deflecting Karaka's tool number 2 without effort. Karaka pulls it back instantly and throws the guillotine again. Terranil watches it close in on his face. Then, at the last possible moment, the guillotine slams down with crushing force, driving him into the floor. Karaka is already moving, rushing to his fallen comrade, asking if he is okay. Kneeling beside Guard P, Karaka cannot stop the thought circling in his mind. Even with his aura fully active, P had been completely helpless against that attack. Terranil's speed defied every bit of logic he understood about combat. Looking at P's condition, he wonders whether the guillotine technique will even be enough to buy them a moment's time. As the thought crosses his mind, Terranil begins forcing himself upright, fighting against the crushing weight of the guillotine. His face darkens, green eyes glowing, as he throws everything he has against the chain. Cracks begin spreading through the guillotine itself. Karaka forces himself to think, clearly despite the panic rising in him. He has to choose. Keep fighting or retreat now and save P. Before he can decide, Guard P stirs back into consciousness. He tells Karaka not to worry about him, to continue the execution of the criminal. He adds, through the pain, that the sacrifice of their fallen colleagues cannot be allowed to mean nothing. Karaka stares at him, tension etched across his face, and finally says the word. Understood. Karaka lifts him up, pulling P's arm over his shoulder, and the two of them start moving together. He tells him they're retreating to receive emergency treatment. He will not put the punishment of a criminal above the life of his colleague. He will handle the rest himself. Guard P tries to say something, managing only a quiet "so" before the words die in his throat. Behind them, Terranil is already standing again, free of the chains, killing intent locked onto both of them. Blood splatters across the next frame. It is impossible to tell whose it is. Far from the prison, at the edges of Rodalin's waters, a ship sits anchored in the open ocean. Its name is the Dragon Tribe's golden ship, Solaran. Figures in white cloaks move quietly across its deck. One of them asks how the perception impairing magic is holding up. The other confirms that it is working perfectly. They have cast the spell 5 times already, covering the entire ship. To anyone trying to sense them, there should be nothing there at all. The other man continues. Following the bishop's orders, they intend to quickly acquire the Red Dragon's location. A flaming tornado crashes down onto the ship without warning. It catches the man standing just behind him mid-sentence, swallowing him whole in fire. The others spin around in shock at the sudden turn of events. An explosion tears through the ship, scattering the white, cloaked figures across the deck. Burned corpses lie scattered around them, as the survivors stared down at their fallen comrades in disbelief. One of them looks up, stunned, wondering aloud how they were detected at all. Above them, a figure floats in the air wrapped in a red cloak. His voice carries pure fury as he demands to know how they dared enter the birthplace of the holy fire without permission. The hooded figures stare up at him, frozen in fear. This is Iterband. He tells them that if they truly believe they could hide from him, it was nothing more than a mortal child's game. He continues, explaining that magic itself stems from beings like him. One of the white, cloaked men stares up at him, his expression twisting into pure dread, never having expected to face a dragon's full wrath like this. A fireball begins forming directly above the ship. Iterband tells them to understand that and become ash. As he speaks, he conjures dozens more fireballs across the sky and hurls them all down onto the ship at once. The cloaked figures scramble, casting frantic magic circles, doing everything they can to survive the onslaught. None of them manage to escape the dragon's fury. A flaming tornado rises up from the wreckage of a ship, consuming everything left. Watching from the top of a nearby tower, someone observes the spectacle and murmurs that it is a beautiful firework, announcing the beginning of everything to come. It is the Bishop of the North. Her smile stretches wide with something close to ecstasy, eyes wild as she watches the fire consume the ship below. The sounds of fighting suddenly echo from somewhere else in Ronan. Ronan hears it immediately and knows in an instant that something significant has happened. The noise is far too intense to be nothing. Elizabeth stays calm, pointing out that strange noises in Ronan usually turn out to be nothing more than prisoners causing another riot. Ronan is not convinced. Even so, he decides their best move is to head straight toward the Order's special building, since the Order seems like the most likely group involved in whatever this is. As they move, a voice suddenly calls out from inside a nearby building, addressing them as honored guests. Loud noises spill out from within, drawing their attention immediately. The voice announces urgently that Ronan is currently under external invasion. The speaker adds, almost offhandedly, that his strange senses only ever activate when something terrible is happening. Ronan, Elizabeth, and Assel all feel it at the same time. Something about this is wrong. Ronan demands answers immediately. He wants to know if the Order is responsible. He wants to know the current situation. He starts asking about Karaka. Before he gets a single answer, a man in a cloak steps forward and explains calmly that others are already confirming the details. He orders the group to evacuate, claiming he will escort them to safety. Ronan sees through it instantly. The cloaked man is not alone. Several more are waiting just out of sight. Their real intention is to lure Ronan into a trap and kill him there. Before the door even opens, Ronan moves. With terrifying speed and precision, he drives his sword straight through the closed door. The blade punches clean through the wood and into the cloaked man's chest. Blood bursts from his mouth as the strike lands fatally. Ronan mocks the attempt coldly. If they really wanted to deceive him, he tells them, they should have hidden their disgusting mana first. He storms inside without hesitation. His sword tears through everyone waiting in ambush, severing limbs and cutting down attacker after attacker as he moves through the room. The survivors scream for everyone to kill him. At that exact moment, Elizabeth and Assel arrive. Both unleash their mana at once, raining attacks down on the remaining enemies. One after another, they fall under the assault. Looking at the aftermath, Ronan realizes this incident runs far deeper than they originally thought. There is no time left to stand around analyzing it. Everything is moving too fast. He tells them both not to hesitate from this point on. Far out at sea, a massive ship burns. A violent storm churns around it. Everyone aboard has already been reduced to ash and ruin. Standing alone in the middle of the destruction is Iterband. He is the one who set the ship ablaze. Looking over the wreckage, he sees nothing but pathetic moths that could not even manage to struggle. Then he senses someone approaching from behind. His expression darkens instantly. He turns with a fierce glare, anger flaring at the very thought of anyone looking down on him. Without hesitation, he hurls a wave of fire mana at the newcomers, the attack surging forward with tremendous force. The flames accomplish nothing. Standing there, completely unharmed, are the Bishop of the North and her subordinate. Her guard deflects the attack with no visible effort at all. The bishop finds Iterband's behavior almost amusing. She views him as nothing more than an arrogant servant throwing a tantrum. Even so, she is willing to overlook the disrespect. The reason is simple. The power inside him is something she wants badly. Iterband demands to know what she means by that. The bishop answers plainly. In the dragon tongue, the source of endless mana is called the dragon heart. That is exactly what she needs from him. Iterband answers with a dangerous smile. He knows full well what happens to those who go searching for a dragon heart. Old stories. Many had wanted it once. Some chased fame. Some chased wealth. Some only wanted freedom from servitude. No matter what drove them, every single one of them ended the same way. Nothing left behind but ash. As he speaks, an enormous dragon-shaped shadow forms behind him, built entirely from his own mana, radiating a pressure that fills the entire area. The bishop's guard tenses immediately, raising a hand and gathering mana, bracing for a fight. The bishop himself does not move. With a confident smile, he tells his guard to stand down. In his eyes, Iterband simply lacks experience. Just a young man blinded by his own recklessness. That, he says, is about to change. It will change the moment Iterband sees his greatest masterpiece. The bishop snaps his fingers. Dark mana erupts outward, swallowing the entire area in a sinister purple aura. The sea reacts instantly, the storm around them growing more violent as dark energy spreads across the surroundings. Iterband grits his teeth in anger, watching the phenomenon take shape. Even a distant group of crow-masked figures sees it from afar, staring in stunned silence, unable to understand what they are looking at. Iterband lifts his gaze toward the sky. What hangs above him feels deeply wrong. Just by existing, it tramples on the natural order itself. It corrupts and stains everything living around it. To Iterband, it is nothing less than a giant mass of impurity. And it is enormous. Positioned directly above the burning ship, ready to descend. If it falls, everything below will be wiped out completely. The bishop admires his own creation, almost glowing with pride, and invites Iterband to share his thoughts. He admits none of his earlier masterpieces compare to this one. He poured more time and care into it than anything before. This creation took 1,000 mana stones, 10,000 different techniques, and, most horrifying of all, 100,000 lives. All of it fused together with overwhelming resentment, woven into a single monstrous being. Gravelis. The creature lets out a deafening roar that shakes the storm itself. The bishop points directly at Iterband. He explains that Gravelis still has limitations, its power unstable in its current form. But he no longer sees that as a flaw. The reason is simple. Iterband carries a dragon heart. With that heart, even those limitations could be overcome entirely. The bishop demands that he come willingly. He wants the dragon heart offered to him. Both of them wear the same crazed smile as the confrontation reaches its peak. Neither shows even a flicker of fear. Both release everything they have at once, their overwhelming mana colliding violently against each other. The air itself trembles under the pressure. A massive war is about to begin. The chapter opens on flame particles drifting through the air. The full picture comes into view. Erzsébet and Ronan are standing together, looking back at a burning body. The lingering scent of it is enough to irritate her. She continues their conversation, pointing out that the fact they have come all the way to Radolan, the grave of criminals, can only mean they have one goal in mind. Evelyn-Droza. Ronan confirms her suspicion. Then his expression shifts. He senses something else, a mass of demonic energy far stronger than anything ordinary, something that feels even heavier than Bajura's presence. He looks out the window as the thought settles in. There is definitely a bishop-level power somewhere nearby. The moment that thought finishes forming, the scene shifts outside Radolan. A massive mouth tears open in the sky, and impurity begins pouring down from it, enough to blanket the entire island and still have room to spare. Ronan keeps thinking. There is no way Karaka would have overlooked something on this scale. Something must have gone wrong inside the death row wing. He starts to say, if so. Before he can finish the sentence, a strange mana rushes toward him like lightning and locks around him completely. Ronan is caught off guard for a moment. He recognizes it instantly. A movement-restricting aura. The moment he is bound, a beam of light shoots straight toward him, colliding directly into his position. Ronan stops the beam cold with his dagger, channeling his energy through the blade to deflect it entirely. With the help of his aura, he erases the attack completely before it can reach him. A smile spreads across his face as he looks toward the far end of the hall. He had not expected to see these particular faces again. He removes both of their masks and tells them they look good. He asks if Karaka's torture suited their taste. Then he names them. Cirilla. Dolan. Dolan's face twists with rage, veins bulging across his skin, as he tells Ronan that he endured hellish torture for one purpose alone: to tear him apart. Cirilla simply repeats the same phrase over and over. I will kill you. I will kill you. I will kill you. Then both of them speak in unison. With the grace they receive from the great tip of the star, they will finally kill him. Their faces darken, eyes glowing with something close to madness. The moment they finish speaking, a hostile purple aura radiates outward from both of them, washing over Ronan, Assel, and Erzabet. A crazed smile spreads across Ronan's face. He tells them their greeting is unusually rough. Then he calculates carefully. The concentration of their mana has changed completely from before. Judging by their energy alone, both of them have reached at least branch leader level. The two of them stand there, madness and murderous intent swimming in their eyes. Ronan's smile fades. He thinks to himself that he cannot afford to waste time here. He needs to finish this quickly. Before he can finish that thought, someone calls out to him and steps forward. Assel and Erzabet ready their power, asking Ronan to leave the two of them to deal with this and head on ahead. A flicker of worry crosses Ronan's face. He asks what they mean by that. Assel's hand glows with blue mana. With a small smile, he tells Ronan that he cannot afford to lose time here, and he needs to save his stamina for what's ahead. Erzabet agrees, purple flame gathering around her, her gaze focused and sharp. She tells him that since they are racing against time, wasting energy here would be the worst possible decision. Assel turns back to him with a smile and asks him to trust them. They have trained hard for exactly this moment. Ronan looks genuinely surprised. He thinks to himself, they just deflected Dolan's aura, even though he is far stronger than before. That is not even funny. He pushed them this hard because he needed comrades capable of standing against giants alongside him. But in every real fight so far, he has been the one shielding them instead. He looks ahead and sees Assel glowing with blue aura, Erzabet with purple flame ready in her hand. A proud smile crosses his face. He tells them not to complain to him later. Then he turns and runs, heading in the direction where the real fighting is happening. Dolan and Cirilla both try to chase after him, shouting that he will not get away. Dolan raises his blade. Cirilla begins forming a magic circle in her hand. Before either of them can take a single step, Assel readies his glowing aura, lifting stones from the ground, while Erzabet ignites her flame at the same instant. A blinding light erupts as all of their auras collide. The scene shifts outside Radolan to a ship out at sea. Itterband stands facing the Bishop of the North. A giant purple mass hangs in the sky above the ship, and dark hands are rising out of the floor where the bishop stands. The giant purple mass opens its mouth. A glowing eye, scattered, sharp teeth, and a purple aura gathering at its center. It is so massive that all of Radolan would look like a tiny house beside it. The purple aura radiating from it begins spreading outward. The ripple reaches Itterband, and he is caught off guard by the sheer weight of the presence. Hands erupt from the floor beneath him, gripping his legs, slowly climbing to bind his entire body. He stares at the black aura spreading across the floor, wondering what this even is. A noise begins building as the hands close around his face. His skin starts being eaten away, half of his face stripped down to raw muscle as more hands wrap around the rest of his body. As it happens, Itterband realizes something. This is not just noise. It is black magic, binding him in the shackles of a sonic curse. Half his face gone, flames begin rising from his body. Fire erupts outward, burning away every hand that holds him. Itterband mutters, "How superficial." He pours out even more mana, burning through the black aura entirely, destroying every hand that tried to claim him. He asks coldly if they truly believed a mere human spell could seal a dragon. A crazed smile crosses the bishop's face. She remarks that the way he endured those cries proves he truly carries dragon's blood. She adds that an ordinary person would have died instantly the moment those cries reached their ears. Her eyes shift to a strange, frog-like shape as she tells him there is no need to feel disappointed just yet. After all, the feast has only just begun. With that same crazed smile, a menacing look in her eye, she stretches her hand toward Itterband, purple aura flaring around it. Her fingers twist around each other, the aura spiraling up her arm, the whole limb contorting unnaturally. Suddenly her hand reshapes itself into a weapon, dark purple energy wrapped around it. Itterband is caught off guard. The bishop tears off her left arm, the weapon now fully formed, and lunges straight toward him, her other hand drawn back behind her. The entire ship turns black as the purple aura radiates outward. The weapon closes in on the dragon's face. Before it can land, he deflects it with a flick of his hand, sending the bishop flying backward. With pure ecstasy in her eyes, she remarks that the dragon's mind and body are very close to completion. Looking at him as an ingredient excites her more and more. She stops mid-air, purple aura radiating outward, and fires a barrage of purple beams of light directly at the ship where Itterband stands. Itterband watches the beams come hurtling toward him. Before they can reach him, a wall of fire rises up to surround them, the flames bursting outward to protect him. Anger and a crazed glint in his eyes, Itterband tells her she truly is a fool. Flame swirls around him as he speaks. She is about to witness the end of her foolish servant. This is the punishment of the sky. The bishop looks up. A massive meteor is descending straight down onto the impurity above. The impurity itself is so massive that Ronan would look like a tiny house in comparison, but the meteor the dragon has summoned is so much larger that even the impurity looks like a golf ball beside it. The chapter opens with the meteor continuing its descent toward the impurity. The ocean itself is boiling under the heat radiating from it, the entire ship trembling from the temperature alone. The bishop smiles with pure ecstasy, murmuring to herself that she cannot help but marvel at how effortlessly a meteor, the pinnacle spell of all fire-type magic, was just cast. She looks at Itterband, flames still burning in his eyes, and remarks that this is exactly what one would expect from a race that stands at the very peak of all creation. As a researcher of magic herself, she adds, turning her back on a wonder like this would be nothing short of a disgrace. She calls out the name of her own spell, Magic Fluid. The moment she finishes speaking, the giant impurity opens its mouth, gathering mana inside it, before launching a fluid-like purple mass straight at the incoming meteor. The purple liquid, aura swirling around it, slams directly into the meteor. Both forces strain against each other, fighting for supremacy in this collision. A faint white light, scattered with tiny sparkling stars, drifts from the bishop's hand toward the impurity. She snaps her fingers. The instant she does, purple aura begins pouring from her hand. After the snap, every soul trapped inside the impurity begins screaming at once. As they scream, horrifying faces in green, red, and yellow surface across the creature's body. A black mass slowly gathers at a single point. Once the mass has fully condensed, it bursts out from the impurity's mouth alongside the purple liquid, now completely merged, and crashes directly into the meteor. The meteor begins to crack under the pressure of the combined black mass, the entire structure breaking apart under the weight of it. With fire still burning in his eyes, Itterband tells the bishop that she does not understand a single thing. He asks why she thinks flame aura is even gathering around him in the first place. He is the peak of all creation. She does not even understand who she is truly facing. He casts another spell, Meteor Storm. A new meteor breaks straight through the wall of black light, and countless more begin raining down from the sky at the same time, crashing toward the impurity from every direction. Each impact creates a towering pillar of flame, slamming straight into the creature and triggering massive blasts. The sky fills with smoke as burning debris falls in every direction. Fragments of the meteors and the dying impurity rain down into the sea around the ship. Wiping blood from his mouth, Itterband remarks that she actually managed to make someone of his bloodline bleed. His expression darkens, eyes glowing as he looks at her burning form. He asks if this is a forbidden spell, one that connects to her own body by sacrificing someone else as the cost. He continues, voice low. How wretched, dragging yourself all the way to death's door like this. His eyes burn red as he draws a sword forged entirely from flame. Ashbringer. Looking at the blade, he tells her that these flames will not go out until the target standing before him has been completely extinguished. He raises the sword, ready to bring it down on her, and tells her to keep struggling until her pathetic life has burned away into ash. Then he brings the flaming blade down, declaring this the punishment of a dragon. The bishop stares down at the floor, her expression dark. Then she lifts her gaze, blood pooling in her eyes, and tells him he is far too arrogant for a child of fire. A white, star-like energy starts forming around her like a small tornado as she continues. He is not the one meant to administer this trial. That responsibility belongs solely to the stars. Before the sword can touch her, the white star energy shatters it completely. Shock spreads across Itterband's face. He stares at the broken blade. A flaming sword infused with a dragon's own mana, broken just like that? He cannot understand how that's possible. While he stands frozen in disbelief, he feels the floor shift beneath him. He steps into something. Looking down, he realizes the entire deck of the ship is now covered in the same purple liquid, and strange faces are surfacing from within it. Sweat beading across his face, Itterband stares at the screaming faces beneath him, unable to process what he's looking at. Then someone steps onto one of those faces. It is the bishop. She shudders with ecstasy and admits that her greed has made these children suffer. But, she continues, this was all part of the trial necessary to achieve a complete life. She tells him the children should not hate her too much for it. Once she takes the heart of a dragon's child, they will all be reborn into something far grander. The purple liquid stretches out into rope-like tendrils, binding around Itterband as she speaks. Furious, he tells her this is a ridiculous last-ditch effort. He just needs to burn it all away and nothing will change. Flame begins gathering around his body as he speaks. Then it simply goes out. Worry crosses his face, sweat pouring down as he realizes his magic is not activating at all. The bishop bursts into crazed laughter. She tells him that even as a dragon, he is still only a hatchling. Did he really think he could pour out that much magic and walk away unaffected? She continues, her tone darkening with amusement. With this much demonic energy and Gravelis's cries weighing down on him, using his power has become incredibly difficult now. Having already savored the taste of his dragon heart's power, she declares it is finally time to prepare a feast worthy of the occasion. Above the ship, a massive purple magic circle forms, layered with multiple circles inside it. The bishop announces that she will offer Gravelis's resentment as a sacrifice. The moment she finishes saying it, a vast amount of dark liquid is pulled into the circle. The sky around Ronan turns an ominous shade of red, and the circle itself turns completely black. She continues, those who reach the rank of bishop or higher within their order are granted a punishing power. The wings of the stars. A power with no flaws. One that takes a different shape depending entirely on the wielder's interpretation. Itterband looks up at the sky, the black mass swirling above him, worry plain on his face. The bishop continues, these are my wings. As she speaks, white light pours out from the black mass, gathering together, slowly forming the shape of an enormous hand. It descends from the sky directly toward the ship, so massive that the ship itself looks like a speck beneath it. Itterband's face is soaked with sweat as the bishop continues speaking. There is no need to fear this, she tells him gently. He should simply let his body go, comfortably, and leave it to her. Only then will he achieve a more complete life. With a crazed smile and a strange blue glow in her eyes, she extends her hand toward him. She tells him to leave eternally with her. As she speaks, the giant hand surges down at the dragon. Then a voice cuts through the air, telling him to deliver a message to his mother. A red beam of light tears down from the sky, splitting straight through the giant hand. Someone drops down in front of Itterband. The massive hand, glowing white, has been split clean open. Ronan has arrived on the ship. He looks at Itterband and tells him it is thanks to him that he made it back home alive. A dagger rests in his left hand. His sword sits across his right shoulder, and his eyes are already locked on the bishop, a calm smile spreading across his face. The chapter opens with blood spilling across the floor. Then the full picture comes into view. A single figure with white hair sits on the ground nearby, staring at the scene in front of him. That is Guard P. He screams the director's name, with pure horror in his voice. Terranil has driven his fist completely through Karaka's body. Blood pours continuously from the wound, dripping toward where Terranil stands. Karaka looks down at himself. Pain fills every part of his expression. He squints his eyes against it. Then he lifts his gaze directly at Terranil. His face is dark. His eyes carry a death glare, locked onto the enemy. A low, guttural sound rises from Terranil, like something not quite human anymore. Terranil begins pulling his fist back out. As the arm withdraws, Karaka grabs it. Chains snap out immediately, binding both of their hands together in the same motion. Karaka turns his head and speaks to Guard P. His eyes are glowing red behind the mask, both hands now locked together with Terranil's through the chain. He tells Guard P to run. He tells him it will be difficult, but now is the time to retreat as far as he possibly can. Guard P's voice breaks as he cries out that he cannot just leave the director behind. Karaka tells him that this is no time to be worrying about an old man like him. The shock on Guard P's face is visible. In the same breath, Karaka pulls out a knife and drives it into Terranil's shoulder. Red eyes blazing, mask still on, he tells Guard P to think of only one thing. Survive, no matter what. Live to see tomorrow. As he speaks, he twists the knife deeper into the wound. Then he looks back with red eyes, completely focused, blood coating the blade, and continues speaking. He tells Guard P that carrying on Radolan and the Empire's future is his duty now. It sounds less like an order and more like a last message, like a torch being handed over. Guard P is still sitting on the floor, shaking from his injuries, absorbing the weight of what the director just said. He watches Karaka fight with the knife, bleeding the enemy from the shoulder wound, and then Karaka says only one final word to him. Go! Guard P forces his broken body upright, coughing, grief written across his face. Then he turns and runs in the opposite direction from the enemy as fast as he can manage. Behind him, Terranil screams like a wild animal and drives his leg straight into Karaka's stomach with enough force to shatter a wall. The kick connects. The force tears through Karaka and launches him backward. He almost loses consciousness, but he catches himself and forces his eyes back to the enemy. He checks the wound he gave Terranil. It is already almost gone. A purple aura flares around the injury site as it heals in real time right before his eyes. Even so, Karaka does not let go. He tightens his grip on Terranil's hand, still bound by the chain, and murmurs to himself that in spite of all this, he cannot stop. He hurls the knife directly at Terranil's face. Terranil shifts just enough to avoid it and throws a punch back at Karaka. Karaka catches the punch and slashes again with the knife, his internal voice pushing him forward. Not yet, just a little more. Then Terranil's fist, purple light burning in his eyes, lands directly on Karaka's face. The mask shatters and flies off, leaving Karaka's face fully exposed. At the same moment, Karaka pulls the knife down and drives it toward Terranil's stomach. Terranil throws another fist at him, catching him square in the face again. Karaka is knocked back, but his grip on the chain does not break. Terranil raises his elbow and brings it crashing down on Karaka's chin. The impact throws Karaka back hard. Then both fighters go still. Blood pours from Karaka's mouth. His foot slips in the pool, spreading beneath him. He stands there swaying badly, while Terranil stands perfectly upright without even a hint of difficulty. A wide pool of blood surrounds them both. Karaka's face tightens in anger. He clenches his teeth, barely holding his body together by will alone. Looking down at the floor, he keeps thinking. Terranil's body regenerates just as fast as his wounds are made. He cannot damage it badly enough to matter. If a monster like that gets away, the blood it costs to think that thought is already pooling on the floor beneath him. The Bishop of the North looks down at him with glowing red eyes as Karaka's thoughts continue. Once again, the blood of innocent people will be spilled across the entire empire. That is exactly why he thinks he is grateful. A crazed smile spreads across his face. Newfound purpose ignites in his eyes as the thought completes itself. This old life of mine can still serve a purpose. The moment that thought settles, the blood pooled across the floor begins to move. Karaka's aura pours into it. The blood starts spinning, pulling itself together, rising behind Terranil in a towering crimson spiral. Terranil turns around to look. Karaka speaks. He names his final execution technique. Blood Maiden. A giant figure made entirely of blood rises up from the floor. Terranil stares at it, visibly surprised for the first time. Karaka looks at him and tells him thank you for keeping him company. Terranil stares blankly forward, eyes fixed ahead in a daze. Karaka continues. He explains what Blood Maiden is. It is the strongest execution tool he can create from his own aura. His most powerful technique. The cruelest and most absolute sealing artifact he possesses. It brings eternal pain to anyone it embraces. He was never able to use it easily. It costs nearly a fatal amount of his own blood just to bring it out, and he has only managed to use it a handful of times in his entire life. It was only thanks to the punishment Terranil gave him that he finally has enough blood to call out again. He tells him that the time has come to end this long interrogation. He grips both of Terranil's bound hands tightly. Blood Maiden's doors begin opening around them. He tells Terranil not to feel lonely. With a crazed grin and a wide smile, he tells him that he will be going with him. The face of Blood Maiden appears. It begins laughing. Doors lined with enormous inward-facing spikes start moving, closing fast around their target. The spikes close in. Karaka speaks his final words from inside the closing doors. He says it is enough. If giving this one life can stop even a single disaster, that is more than enough. That alone gives everything its meaning. The doors are almost shut. Then a single eye opens. Karaka blinks. He is outside Blood Maiden. He stares at it in confusion. He was inside. The doors were closing. And now he is standing here looking at it from the outside. He does not understand what just happened. A hand extends toward him. Blue glowing energy wraps around it. Karaka stares at the hand, completely bewildered, wondering why he is standing out here. Then a voice calls out a single word. Heal. White and blue energy floods around Karaka's entire body. He is shocked, trying to understand what is happening. Then he feels it. The hole that was punched through his stomach. Completely sealed. The wounds across his body. Gone. He looks down at himself in disbelief. The other person begins to speak. With a dry, almost amused tone, the voice tells him that at his age he is still out here on the front lines. He will never die of old age at this rate. Then it adds with something like familiar warmth that he supposes that is just one of Karaka's strengths. Karaka looks back at the figure. He stares at them. The voice continues, looking down at Karaka, sitting on the floor with a faint smile. Karaka raises his eyes toward the person standing inside a hood. Amusement settles across his face as he recognizes who it is. Standing there, hood down, blue light still sparkling in his eyes, is none other than the great mage. Loran. Karaka stares at Loran in stunned silence. He had believed that even the magic tower had been unable to locate him. A part of him wonders if the man had simply been inside the Imperial Palace all along, hiding in plain sight. Loran has no interest in catching up right now. He tells Karaka that any reunion can wait. The immediate priority is the dangerous thing standing in front of them. Without hesitation, he turns toward Blood Maiden and destroys it with a single strike. Karaka cannot believe what he just watched. That sealing technique cost him nearly his life to activate, and it is gone in one hit. Loran explains calmly that Blood Maiden is a powerful sealing art built from materialized aura. Impressive by any standard, it was simply broken apart by something more straightforward. Overwhelming physical strength. The display only fascinates him further. As the shattered seal dissolves, Terranil steps out of it, and he is not the same. His appearance has shifted into something more terrifying than before, and the power radiating off him has climbed far beyond what either of them faced earlier. Karaka senses it immediately. It is not just battle aura anymore. An overwhelming aura of death surrounds Terranil now. The true extent of what he has been holding back finally visible. Loran understands what happened. Blood Maiden unintentionally shattered the final seal that had been restraining Terranil all along. What they're looking at now is the soul's final blaze, burning at its absolute brightest in the moments before it goes out completely. Left alone, Terranil would eventually destroy himself. Loran has no intention of letting it play out that way. There's also something he wants to confirm before the end arrives. A confident grin spreads slowly across his face. Terranil does not give them time to think. He lets out a deafening roar and launches himself straight at both of them. An enormous wave of aura erupts from his body, shaking the entire space around them. Loran moves to intercept, raising his mana to block the incoming force. Terranil closes the distance in an instant and drives a devastating punch into both of them. The impact sends Loran and Karaka flying in opposite directions. Karaka crashes far across the room. Loran hits the ground hard. Karaka looks over and shouts a warning. Before Loran can fully recover, Terranil is already on him again, another crushing punch landing before he can respond. The impact completely destroys the ground around the point of contact. Blood drips from Loran's hand, not from the punch landing, but from the force of hitting the ground after barely dodging it at the last possible moment. Even Terranil seems surprised the blow missed. Loran looks at him with genuine admiration. He acknowledges that Terranil must have been an unmatched warrior during his lifetime. The power behind every strike is terrifying. He admits that aside from the Sword Saint, nobody has ever managed to crack his defenses like this. Close combat is not his specialty, but he decides now is the time to find out exactly how durable Terranil really is. He activates everything at once. Shield, Aegis Dragon, King's Might, Giant God's Tendons, Blessing of Steel, Roar of Thunder, Primordial Ignition, all of it stacked simultaneously. He clenches his fist and moves. The punch sends Terranil blasting across the battlefield. Before he can find his footing, Loran activates Sprint of the North Wind, Blessing of the Gale, Torrent of the Supernova, and Meteor's Pursuit in the same breath, closing the distance instantly and following up with a kick that launches him even further. Terranil charges back immediately, rage pouring out of him. Loran sidesteps the strike effortlessly, leaping clear before it can connect. Terranil grits his teeth. Loran takes stock of what just happened. He stacked dozens of top-tier buffs simultaneously. Every single one of those attacks carried enough force to level an entire mountain. And Terranil walked through all of it, rather than alarm him. That fact seems to delight him. Terranil roars and throws everything he has left into a single devastating blow. The impact destroys the wall entirely, sending Loran crashing through the ruins and into what lies beyond it. He emerges on the other side, completely unharmed. Before Terranil can follow through, Loran reaches out and grabs him with one hand. Something shifts in his expression as he holds him there. He thinks about what he is looking at. Warriors of this magnitude existing on the other side, and they even possess the power of the stars on top of it. Terranil has become something far more than a curiosity. Terranil responds to this by roaring directly in his face and clenching his teeth harder. Loran slams him into the ground and throws him clear. He abandons his original plan of finishing the fight after measuring Terranil's full strength. The specimen in front of him is simply too fascinating to end that quickly. Terranil charges again. This time Loran releases his mana directly toward him. The effect is immediate. Terranil stops, visibly stunned, looking down at himself with confusion spreading across his face. Loran tells him what it is. A spell he perfected after years of traveling the world. He built it specifically for acquiring valuable specimens. He has been waiting a long time to use it on someone truly worthy of being its first target. He activates it fully. Loran-style collection magic. Zero Zone. Terranil shrinks instantly, reduced to the size of a small doll in the span of a single breath. Loran reaches out calmly and seals him inside a small bottle. He removes his mask, looks at the bottle in his hand, and smiles with complete satisfaction. He welcomes his newest specimen to the collection. Karaka watches Loran drop Terranil into a bottle and seal it shut, and the only thought he can form is that the man is exactly as overwhelming as he has always been. After mastering every branch of magic and stepping into the realm of transcendence, Ronan had become known as something the world had never produced before or since. The first great mage. With Terranil safely sealed, Ronan bursts into delighted laughter, turning the bottle over in his hands, already wondering whether to study the specimen first or dissect it. The thought alone sends him practically bouncing around the room like a child who just found something extraordinary in a corner of the world nobody else had thought to look. Karaka watches this and feels the quiet familiarity of it. Ronan has always been exactly like this the moment a research subject catches his interest. Then he notices something else. Compared to the last time they met, Ronan looks noticeably younger. Karaka forces the thought out of his mind immediately. None of that matters right now. The crisis is not over. He calls out to him. Ronan greets him cheerfully and asks how the massive hole in his body is holding up. Karaka tells him the wound is already closed, thanks to him, and then tells him immediately that this is not the time for that conversation. He explains that the mastermind behind everything, Serafina de Clegier, is still out there. He tells him plainly, and with visible shame at having to say it, as the one responsible for protecting this place, that he needs his help. Ronan repeats the name quietly to himself. Then recognition crosses his face. He remarks that the old fox should have stayed hidden inside her den, instead of crawling back out to cause trouble again. He activates his technique without fanfare. All-seeing eye. Man Sangan. Through his mana, he observes the entire battlefield at once, taking in both the situation aboard the ship where Iterban stands and the positions of everyone else. Then the aura controlling the field catches his attention, and he goes still. It is not Serafina. It is not Iterband either. It is Ronan. Ronan deactivates the technique. A genuine smile of amusement spreads across his face as he tells Karaka that the old fox is no longer going to be a problem. Karaka has no idea what he means and says so directly. Ronan does not explain. He simply tells him to come with him and promises that what they are about to see will be quite a show. The scene shifts to the ship. Ronan stands where the bishop's enormous demonic hand used to be. It has been sliced apart. He is looking at Iterband with a relaxed expression. Iterband cannot process what he just watched. That monstrous hand summoned by the bishop was something he himself could not deal with. It existed outside the normal laws of the world, and Ronan cut straight through it like it was nothing. He realizes that the sword strike transcended the laws of physics themselves. The realm of power behind it is comparable to his mother's sacred flames. He cannot understand how an ordinary human is capable of wielding something like that. Ronan catches the stunned look on his face and grins. He tells him it is refreshing to finally see him make a frightened expression, and adds that he must have been so terrified he nearly lost control of himself. Then he laughs openly. Iterband explodes with outrage, demanding to know how a human dares speak to the great dragon race this way. Ronan cuts him off before he can finish and tells him casually to make sure he passes a message to his mother. Tell her that a pathetic little human just saved his life. He finishes with an unusually unsettling grin directed straight at the dragon's face. Iterband shouts at him to shut up. Ronan notices his own hand trembling. He looks at it. The backlash from using the technique even once has already started. This is the Savior's swordsmanship, a technique that worked flawlessly before because it was used inside a mental world where the body's physical limits simply did not exist. Out here in reality, he can feel his life force draining from that single strike. If he keeps using it in his current condition, he will end up in a coffin. He makes a mental note that overcoming that limitation is a problem for the future, and then puts the thought away entirely. He turns back to the bishop. He asks her why she looks so shocked, and wonders out loud whether that demonic hand was really that precious to her. The bishop is broken, not just physically. Something inside her has collapsed. She tells herself that what she just witnessed is impossible, repeating it like a mantra, trying to reject what her own eyes showed her. But she cannot. The sword strike Ronan just used carries a resemblance to the sacred absolute power that once tore through her wing. The resemblance is too precise to dismiss, too deliberate to be coincidence. Terror floods through her as a memory surfaces. The day the hierarch spoke to her directly. The hierarch had told her that the bishops were the strongest pillars of the starlight, that as long as the blessing of the stars remained with them, no enemy on earth could threaten them. But there was one exception. If she ever encountered someone carrying power equal to the hierarch's own, she was to treat that person as a greater danger than every heretic in the world combined. She was to eliminate them without hesitation, even at the cost of her own life. The memory ends. She forces herself back on her feet, hands trembling. She declares herself Serafina de Clegier, Bishop of the Holy Northern Diocese. She accepts the hierarch's divine command. She will carry it out now. An endless mass of black, demonic energy begins gathering around her. Ronan watches it build and wonders what exactly is happening. Itterband recognizes it immediately. It is demonic energy overflowing with pure malice, a grudge constructed by sacrificing her own life as the fuel. The bishop tells Ronan, the seed of evil who dares threaten the stars, to prepare himself. She will destroy him without fail. She even manages a confident grin as the energy continues building around her. Before the transformation can finish, Ronan drives his sword straight through her chest. She freezes. He tells her calmly that he has no intention of standing around waiting for her to finish transforming. There is simply no reason to do that. He activates Ronan Aura number 1, Spiderweb. The bishop recognizes the pressure the instant it hits her, and her horror is immediate. She knows this aura. It belongs to Dolan. But this version is not remotely comparable to anything that young man ever possessed. The pressure is on a completely different level. Ronan cleanly takes her head off before she can recover. He watches it regenerate and remarks without any particular emotion that he figured she would not go down that easily. Regeneration as well. Of course, her head fully restored. The bishop glares at him with undiluted hatred. Ronan clenches his fist. He tells her that her timing is actually perfect. He needed a proper warm-up anyway. She will do nicely as a punching bag. He activates Lion's Claw. The punch drives directly into her face with overwhelming force. Blood bursts from her mouth as the impact lands. He tells her to bite down hard because they have not even started yet. He keeps going. Punch after punch. The barrage relentless. Each hit landing with the same controlled brutality as the last, until the bishop is sent flying across the battlefield and crashes hard into the wreckage behind her. Even while being beaten without pause, Serafina holds onto something. She reminds herself of who she is. Serafina de Clegier. She had once stood at the absolute peak of the demonic arts. She had looked down upon all living beings, commanded the dead, and ruled above the very laws of life and death itself. A queen who had transcended mortality. And yet here she is, being dismantled by someone who is not even using a proper technique. Just fists. Crude, formless, barbaric punches landing one after another without a shred of elegance. Every time his fist connects, her head is smashed apart. And every time it grows back. Ronan never gives her a single second to use that. The moment regeneration begins, the next punch is already landing. The pain tearing through her is unlike anything she has felt in a very long time. She screams and realizes something that makes it worse. The star's blessing is no longer protecting her. Every spell she attempts to throw up in defense, he shatters before it forms. The cursed dagger buried deep in her body is preventing her from reshaping her flesh the way she normally would. She cannot transform. She cannot dodge. She can only endure. Blood covers the battlefield. Through the pain, she keeps asking herself the same question. How does a mortal body and soul carry this kind of power? What is Ronan? Ronan, for his part, has been counting. By his estimate, he has hit her roughly 80 times. She is still alive. He finds her persistence almost entertaining and decides to round up to 100. He clenches his fist, loads it with an enormous concentration of mana, and swings. This one is different from the rest. Her head leaves her body completely and sails through the air before hitting the water below with a splash. Ronan watches with a cold expression. Her regeneration is noticeably slower this time. He wonders briefly if she has finally hit her limit, She is not. Horrifying demonic limbs erupt from what remains of her mutilated body and wrap around Ronan, pinning him in place. At the same time, her form tears itself apart and rebuilds into something no longer recognizable as human. More demon than person now, a wide and hateful grin stretching across what remains of her face. She tells him that she never wanted anyone to see her like this. As her vanguard, she had always maintained a certain image. But Ronan forced her here, and now she is going to make him suffer so completely that even death will not be an escape for him. Her hand reshapes into an incredibly sharp demonic dagger and drives straight toward him. His sword is near his leg. He does not panic. He lifts it with his foot, catches the hilt in his mouth, and with one clean motion brings it around in a full slash that cuts Serafina's body into two separate halves. She hits the ground in pieces, blood pouring from her mouth as she screams. Ronan stands over her, sword still wet, looking down without particular emotion. He reflects that there was never really any need to ask who she was or why she came here. People like her always dress slaughter up as salvation. That is the only thing her kind ever truly believes in. He tells her that since she devoted herself to destruction, she should already be prepared to receive it in return. Serafina refuses to accept any of it. She is grinding her teeth, telling herself over and over that she is the queen of life and death, the apostle who serves closest to the stars, that death itself cannot reach her. She cannot be losing to this boy. She will not. Then she opens her mouth and releases everything. An enormous torrent of demonic energy pours directly from her, so destructive it begins consuming her own body as it leaves her. It is the kind of power that does not care what it burns on the way out. Ronan is genuinely shocked by the sheer insanity of it. She is willing to destroy herself if it means taking everything around her with her. The wave surges toward him and nearly closes the gap entirely. Then flames cut across the battlefield and slam into the demonic energy head-on. An inferno crashes against the surge and holds it, pushes it back, suppresses it completely. Ronan turns to find the source. It is Iterband, fighting at full strength, pouring everything he has into the counter, his fire neutralizing Serafina's final attack completely. Once the energy is gone, Iterband tells Ronan that with this the debt is settled. Ronan saved his life earlier. That has now been repaid. With that done, there is something he wants Ronan to take back. Ronan thanks him, but genuinely does not follow what he means. Iterband, with visible frustration and embarrassment, demands that Ronan withdraw the earlier claim that he had been so terrified during the fight he nearly lost control of himself. Ronan agrees to let it go, then immediately adds that he is surprisingly petty for a dragon. That irritates Iterband even further. Ronan sets it aside and looks back across the battlefield. He wonders whether Serafina actually died this time. Someone as dangerous as her does not go down from something like this, and he knows it. Iterband confirms his suspicion. At the exact moment she released that massive surge of demonic energy, he sensed a second spell activating beneath it. The self-destruction was a cover. She used the window it created to transfer her consciousness into another body that had been magically prepared and connected to her in advance. She is gone. Ronan stares at him and asks why he did not stop her the moment he sensed it. Iterband explains, looking uncomfortable, that he was fully occupied with containing the demonic energy. He simply could not do both at the same time. Ronan sighs. He remarks that there is only so much he can expect from their precious young dragon master, and mutters that he always ends up handling everything himself in the end. Iterband bristles at that, but has nothing to say. Ronan looks up toward the sky with a calm expression. Serafina escaped, but it is already obvious where a fanatic like her would run to. Chasing her is not the priority right now, though. His first concern is his comrades. High above the battlefield, he spots them, Assel and Erzabet, floating down through the air with relieved smiles on their faces, their own fight finished. They descend gently and make their way toward him. Erzabet looks at Ronan's condition and reflects quietly that she had thought they had already seen the worst of what this situation could throw at them. Looking at him now, she decides she will never make that mistake again. Assel is buzzing with excitement. She tells Ronan that watching him deal with that massive threat in an instant was something else entirely, and admits with a laugh that she still has a long way to go before she reaches his level. Ronan tells her not to sell herself short. He says she actually surprised him back there. Those two opponents were not easy by any measure, and she walked away without a scratch. He grabs her by the head and starts patting it with genuine pride. He does the same to Erzsébet. Erzsébet immediately protests, saying loudly that Adeshan is the only person permitted to pat her head and demanding that he stop at once. Assel, pinned under the same treatment, complains that she cannot breathe. Iterband watches all of this in silence. Something about the scene pulls a memory loose. His mother's words, spoken to him a long time ago. She had reminded him that the world was vast, that he might consider himself above every other species, and even the great dragons were not exempt from mistakes. But making mistakes did not make them lesser. True greatness came from accepting one's faults, learning from the strengths of others, and having the courage to develop one's own. That, she told him, was what truly defined greatness. She had teased him gently for struggling to accept it, and acknowledged that someone raised within the sacred lands would naturally find it difficult. But just as she had come to understand it herself, she believed he would encounter something one day that would pull his soul out of the shallow well it had been sitting in. The memory fades. Ronan is still patting the two of them. They are laughing now despite their protests. Iterband watches and finally understands what his mother meant. This must have been exactly what she was talking about. He smiles quietly and remarks that they really are living through the best years of their lives. Then someone lands in front of them in the strangest possible way, touching down upside down before righting himself as if this is entirely normal. It is Loran. Everyone stares. Iterband looks genuinely surprised to see him here and wonders what brought him to this place. Loran smiles warmly and tells him that it has been quite a while. Then he calls him by his old nickname, Sparky. The moment that name lands, Iterband goes rigid with embarrassment and fury. Ronan, Erzsébet, and Assel all turn to stare at him with the same expression. Iterband rounds on Loran and demands to know how long the old man intends to keep using a name that was given to him before he was even born. Loran chuckles and tells him he is getting quite prickly now that he has hit puberty, then adds that Navardoj must be very worried about him. Erzsébet and Assel look at each other, stunned. They start piecing together who they're actually looking at. The only archmage in human history to have mastered every form of elemental magic. The man who stepped beyond the boundary of magic entirely and into something else. The first great mage, Loran. Loran casually flips his hair and confirms it without a hint of modesty. Erzsébet and Assel immediately light up, expressing enthusiastically how honored they are to be standing in front of him. Loran smiles and tells them not to worry about formalities. He says the honor is entirely his, getting to meet such promising young talent. He extends the same toward Ronan. Ronan has been unusually quiet through all of this. Loran notices. He remarks that most younger people tend to freeze the moment they hear his name. Ronan just smiles and tells him that he already knew he had been watching them. And beyond that, a person's name has never been the thing that matters to him. What matters is the kind of person they actually are. As he says it, a memory surfaces. A battlefield. An old man fighting alongside him in the middle of a war. The old man tells him to loosen up and stop talking as though every sentence might be his last. He tells him to focus on the ayat straight ahead while he handles the other opponent. Then he adds that once this war is over, Ronan will have become a hero, and everyone, including himself, will be there to testify to what he did. When that day comes, he promises to treat him to a proper cup of tea. The memory dissolves. Karaka arrives, cutting through the moment with an apology for the interruption. But his expression is serious. He tells everyone plainly that it is far too early to lower their guard. A woman who defied the laws of death itself could not have been finished off so simply. He is certain that Seraphina is already moving toward the Witch of Winter. Elsewhere in Radolan, a hooded figure is making its way toward the abyss. Moving through the corridors, the figure turns over everything that just happened. The humiliation of it sits heavy. None of this should have been possible. If the attacks had continued any longer, there would have been nothing left. Terranil's presence has gone completely silent. Every contact with the dolls scattered across Ronan has been cut off simultaneously. That kind of total erasure requires magic that far outpaces anything the figure possesses. There is only one person alive capable of that. Ronan. The figure curses him bitterly. If that man had arrived alongside whoever else was on that battlefield, escape would not have been an option at all. But returning empty-handed is not acceptable either. If a defeat has to be announced, at least something needs to be brought back with it. The figure calls out to Evelyn Droza. It is time to wake up. Mana pours outward from the figure and flows into the ice surrounding Evelyn. The frozen prison begins, fractures spreading across the surface as the seal starts giving way. As the ice breaks, the scene pulls into the past. Evelyn is at Phelion. Her mother is standing in front of her, badly injured, clearly having barely survived something terrible. Evelyn cannot understand how she ended up here or what happened to her. Her mother breaks down completely and tells her that it is over. The enemy found out everything. Flames and nothing but chaos are waiting in the north. The people of the Droza family tried to resist the Akalugia, but there was never any real chance. She is the only one who made it out. Evelyn struggles to process any of it. She cannot understand why the Akalugia would even come after them. What reason could they possibly have? Her mother's expression hardens. She asks her daughter if she truly believes her own mother would lie to her in a moment like this. She tells her that her father fought until the very end for their family, that even his final dying wish was crushed before it could be honored. Evelyn begins trembling. Her mother grabs her and tells her to prepare herself. She commands her to take every piece of sorrow inside her and turn it into hatred, to flood their enemies' lands with blood until that blood reaches back home. That is the only way to honor their family. That is the duty of the last remaining Droza. She commands her daughter to wake up, to let hatred be the force that drives her power forward. The memory ends. The ice around Evelyn shatters completely. Her weakened body falls forward, caught by the hooded figure standing beneath her. Evelyn looks up at the face holding her and goes still with shock. The hood falls back. The man smiles down at her warmly and tells his precious jewel that it is good to see her. It is her father.